Before you can be considered for Cartoon Fridays, you must prove your worth.
Let's begin.
Shall we? Fill in the blank for me. Hey there, little what?
Sailor?
Ah!
I don't know. Mummy?
Close, but incorrect.
You must be nuts. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Who is my greatest rival?
Dee.
Wrong!
Mandark.
What is the Cartoon's theme song?
Bum, 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 bum.
Leader, bubbles, daddy.
That's the theme to the Powerpuff Girls.
What did you just say? Which one am I? Come on. Ha.
You're Ed, single D, you're Ed, double D, you're ready. I love you guys.
Cartoon Fridays. Tonight at 7:30 on Cartoon Network. You with us?
Now say it right.
The Powerpuff Girls. I got it, okay?
Now, it's a review of Dexter's Lab, Mandark's Lab. Next, it's a review of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, the game. Later, it's 5 Courage Flash games. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
My massive intellect predicts Dexter is back on Cartoon Network.
Dexter's Laboratory, one of the earliest Cartoon Network originals that premiered in 1995. So the series turned 30 this year. I love existentialism! The show was about a boy genius of the same name as the show who built a lab in his house and keeps it secret from his parents. He goes inside to research and experiment as his sister Dee barges in to mess with him, much to his dismay. The series was created by Genndy Tartakovsky as his first animated show, as he would later create other cartoons for both CN and Adult Swim, such as Samurai Jack, Symbionic Titan, Primal, and Unicorn Warriors Eternal. He was also a director for Star Wars The Clone Wars and the Powerpuff Girls. Compared to his later shows, Dexter sticks out like a sore thumb. These are primarily action cartoons, as Dexter was mainly a comedy, but later episodes of the show would lean more towards action. It was almost like a hint to Genndy's future creations. Don't get me wrong, he hasn't abandoned comedy, as he would be the main director of the Hotel Transylvania film series, and even has an upcoming adult animated film called Fixed. But you can easily tell where Genndy's interests are mainly at. Many often compare Dexter's Lab to Nickelodeon's Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. They're both shows that's main characters are boy geniuses, but besides that, they're polar opposites. Think about it like this. Jimmy Neutron is about a kid who just so happens to be a genius, while Dexter's Lab is about a genius who just so happens to be a kid. In other words, Jimmy acts more like a kid, wanting to hang out with his friends, impress his crush, or pass his school projects. So he'll use an invention to try to resolve the problem, but often makes things spiral out of control, and he has to use his brains to clean up the mess that he's made. He even makes stuff just to entertain himself and his friends, such as a digital world to access your own personal video game, or a machine that can turn you into monsters for Halloween. Heck, we rarely ever see Dexter's friends, while Carl and Sheen are in just about every episode. Then there's Dexter. He acts more like a genius, as we often see him working on inventions and researching the world around him within his lab. In fact, most of the series takes place in his lab. I mean, the show is called Dexter's Laboratory after all, while there are some episodes of Jimmy Neutron that don't even feature his lab at all. The problems that Dexter's faces are usually centered around the fact that he's still a kid, having to deal with his sister barging into his lab and messing with his stuff while trying to keep it a secret from his parents, often getting in the way of his work. Yeah, sometimes he'll be more like Jimmy, using his inventions to win at dodgeball or to impress girls, just like how there could be some episodes of Jimmy's show that are more similar to Dexter's, but outliers are bound to happen. You've got to change things up every once in a while, or else things will get stale. Still, the two shows are very different from one another, but comparing the two made it easy for me to introduce the show to you. Hell, I might even be lazy and reuse this section for when I inevitably talk about a Jimmy Neutron game in the future. Hey future me, do you feel good about yourself, you lazy sack of shit? Also, did I lose weight? I've been meaning to get on that. That brings us to Dexter's Lab, the video game, or rather, Mandark's Lab, on the PlayStation 1. Dexter wakes up to find that he's been locked outside of his lab by his arch-nemesis, Mandark, as he threatens to destroy everything he's ever worked on. Dexter must find a way into his lab, undo the damages, and stop Mandark before there's nothing left. You may be confused about what you're seeing right now. Why am I showing clips of the show when I'm talking about the game? Well, because this is the game. More specifically, their cutscenes. You remember those early Adult Swim shows? Some so old that they predate Adult Swim? You know, stuff like Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Harvey Birdman, or C-Lab 2021? Those shows were made by reusing animations, editing stills, or tweening frames around. It's like Frankensteining a new show with the disgusting decomposing remains of old ones. It's like letting a cannibal into the morgue. But sometimes you just can't wait for nature to do its thing, so you just gotta do an arm and muse, and that's exactly what happened here. Which kind of creates a unique charm. I don't think I've ever seen a Cartoon Network show animated like an Adult Swim series. Heck, maybe even the same people who worked on these shows helped with these cutscenes. You ever play games like Rugrats Search for Reptar, where you run around a hub as levels are represented by either objects or doors, as each has a different objective or gameplay style? Sometimes it doesn't even matter which order you play them in. I don't know, just run around the house. Here, have some eggs or balloons, it's fine. I don't know, it'll keep you distracted for an hour. Mary-Kate and Ashley Crush Course, Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules, and then Eddy the Mis-Adventures. I have no idea if these kind of games have a specific term for them, but this is just one of them. You run around Dexter's house and eventually his lab, find blueprints to his inventions, and complete levels to slowly make your way to Mandark. There's only 8 levels in the game! I know this is the 5th generation, and most games are only a few hours long, and only RPGs like Final Fantasy VII are able to take the double digits to beat, but this game is only 1 hour long. I'm not the kind of guy to usually care if a game is long or not, but even I think that's kind of ridiculous. Even licensed games at the time had more levels than this one. Rugrats Search for Reptar has 18 levels in it. A Bug's Life on PS1 has 15. Now when I said I was gonna do a quickie, this is not what I had in mind. Well, at least that makes talking about the game easy, as I can just go through these 8 levels individually. Let's start with Dee Dee's Dance Off. Use Dexter's Dodgeball Meg to dance with Dee Dee. It is your typical rhythm game segment you'd find slapped together in these kind of games. It's no DDR or Step Mania, but I'd rather play this than those Friday Night Funkin' mods where they just fill the chart with countless amounts of notes and call it a challenge, because at least I can finish this level and move on to the next. Cootie call. I see what you did there, you dirty bastard. I like your style. An on-rail shooter where you must spray cooties in Dee Dee's room. When you spray them, they'll perform a high-pitched death rattle as their bodies blow apart in pieces and wait. Is that blood? Probably not, but as an edgelord, just let me have this. After each phase, you'll have to shake up the can to refill its contents. This one's fine and is way more fun than the rhythm segment, but it overstays its welcome. After this, you can finally get into Dexter's lab. Your next game is What's Buggin' Dexter? You chase a computer bug down this track and swat at it up to 5 times. What's a shame is that this game is fun, but it only lasts about a few seconds before it's over. Such a shame. You've got a decent game here, but dang is it short. Up and at 'em. Shoot these multi-eyed bootleg Caco demons and collect their remains. This one is pretty fun too. It's the game that I remember the most from my childhood, and I think it's because of the visuals. These planes under Dexter that seemingly keep going on, but still feels contained due to their short view distance. Silent Hill used fog to cover these up, but honestly in some cases you really didn't need it. Just seeing the world materialize or disappear around you from simply moving is enough. After this, Mandark turns Dexter into an old man, as the next 2 levels are about reliving old memories, or rather, past episodes. Dexter Dodgeball, reusing the assets from Cootie Call, but instead of exploding the bodies of an undiscovered species, you give your fellow classmates a concussion by throwing dodgeballs at them. With each phase, you'll have to reach a certain number of points to move on to the next. Soapbox Derby, your typical racing game with items that you don't even need to use because of how much you'll stay ahead. The D in Racer D stands for dust, because they'll be eating yours. Dexter gets back to normal as he finally reaches Mandark, who challenges him to a few games. If Dexter wins, he'll get his lab back, but if he loses, an explosion will be set off, flooding his lab, destroying his entire lab's work, which, I guess isn't much, because he's like, what, less than 10? Is not really much of a life's work. It's fine. You'll get over it. Hey, I had a house fire in 2010. Get on my level, nerd. That's right, we trauma dumping. This takes us to Molecular Mix-Off, and it's just a rhythm game segment again. But oh dear, they added directions now. Oh my. Great heavens. Gee whiz. Gadzooks! How will I ever beat this one? And I did it. And finally, there's Sub-Zero Hero. Face off against Mandark in a game of ice hockey, and honestly, this game is pretty much the best one of the bunch. It's fun, tries to put up a challenge, and unlike What's Buggin' Dexter, it doesn't last a few micro minutes. Not a bad game to end on. Mandark's Lab is a mixed bag that unfortunately has more bad than good in it. It's not the worst game on the PS1, I can think of more heinous experiences, and even though I complained about the game being only an hour long, it's probably for the best that this game was so short. If it was any longer, its flaws would have been more glaring. I wouldn't call this game short and sweet, it's more like, a decent conversation that gets awkward, but everyone realizes it right away, so there's no harm done. Now, it's a review of The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, the game. Next, it's 5 Courage Flash games. Later, it's 5 Adventure Time Flash games. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
That's where I left him.
In the early 2000s, there was a very unique show on Cartoon Network, Grim and Evil, created by Maxwell Adams. It was unique because it was 2 different cartoons in the same show from the same creator. Evil refers to Evil Con Carne, a series focusing on a group of supervillains living on a bunny-shaped island who plot to take over the world. Grim refers to the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, a series about Billy the dimwit and Mandy the mean spirit, 2 unlikely friends who win an even more unlikely bet against a Grim Reaper. Beating him at Limbo, he's now forced to be their best friend forever! Eventually, the 2 shows split into their own, but Max and his crew found it difficult to work on 2 cartoons at once, so they decided to stick with Billy and Mandy. But Evil Con Carne would still live on, as General Scar would become a reoccurring side character, and they would even bring back other characters for cameos. Billy and Mandy is a horror-inspired cartoon. Note that I said horror-inspired. That's because it's not meant to be scary. It just uses horror as a theme, as the series was more of a dark comedy, with crude and sometimes gross humor. Honestly, I'm fine with this, as Cartoon Network already had Courage the Cowardly Dog, so having 2 horror tunes be made around the same time would probably be a bit much. Even though early episodes would sometimes have more of a creepy vibe, if anything the show was more of a parody of horror, as it would poke fun at the genre while still showing love for it, making references to Hellraiser, Resident Evil, H.P. Lovecraft, and other such things, but in their own unique way. As a kid, I would always take the time to sit down and watch an episode if it was on. I genuinely don't have much to complain about this show, especially with its wide array of wacky characters. Man, these guys could probably work in their own fighting game. And then they made one! The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, the video game!
I feel the need for bleed.
This game is what I like to call a 3D platform fighter. Most people think of only the second dimension when they think about platform fighters, but there are a few in the third as well. Power Stone is probably the most well-known example of this. The creator of Billy and Mandy has even stated that Power Stone was a major inspiration for the game. There aren't that many 3D platform fighters out there, but there are more than you think. You choose your favorite characters, you fight every other loser until they're defeated. But how does it work? You have two buttons for attacking, a fast light attack and a slow heavy attack. You use these attacks to lower your opponent's health until they die. Yes, I said die because I don't care about algorithms. Stop saying unalive, it's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Just say passed on or they're no longer with us if you care so much. It's especially disrespectful to use unalive when referring to real people's deaths too. You can also dash and perform a dash attack by pressing attack while dashing. You can grab items and characters to throw them around, but attacking is only one part of the battle. You use regular attacks to lower your opponent's health and lives, but to finish them off, you must get them down to their lowest health at their last life and hit them with an attack to start a finisher. Beat the prompt and the character is defeated. It's pretty standard as every character only has a few attacks, and many of them play very similar to each other, but the items are what really bring this game to life. There is a dump truck-ass amount of items that will spawn in these chests. These items are really fun to use, and they just make the game that much more chaotic. But it is annoying that just one hit makes you drop an item, and they despawn almost as fast as they come. An important one is Mojo. Collecting Mojo allows you to fill this bar down below. Filling it once lets you let out a crazy combo in a single fighter. Filling it twice creates a finisher that takes one life from every character. That sounds unfair, but trust me, filling up your mojo can be easier said than done. Sorry, Melee fans, this game isn't meant to be competitive. Besides, platform fighter devs need to stop making games for you guys anyway, as not only do you already have enough, but you don't stick with them and claim it's because they're not similar enough to Smash, despite just calling it a ripoff. What the fuck is it? But Smash perfected the genre. Or maybe it's just that's what you're most used to because you grew up with it and refuse to learn anything else? Dear platform fighter devs, expand the community rather than try to appeal to a group of people that will just abandon you in a week or so. Sorry, I'm just too passionate about platform fighters. Not only are there chaotic items, but stages are filled to the brim with hazards and destructible environments. Stages are also set up like episodes, as each one has several phases. After a certain time has passed during a match, you'll be sent to another location on the map. This just adds more to the chaos, especially since each phase has its own unique hazards and enemies too. When in versus mode, you can actually choose whether or not you want to fight on a stage normally, or choose which specific phase that you want to fight on. That's actually really cool. It adds more options to the stages without technically adding any additional ones. If only a supposed perfected pinnacle that constantly insists on having transforming and scrolling stages had this as an option. I love Smash, but some of you have made me more critical of it in recent years. Look what you did to me. Go to your room! And support Multiverse Infinite. There are two control options for the game, and even though they both have the same functions, their execution is a lot different. You can either play with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck combo, or the GameCube controller. The Wii Remote and Nunchuck uses motion control for heavy attacks and finishers. When you're finishing an opponent, use the Wii Remote's pointer to aim at these icons. Man, I really hate how so many games on the Wii enforced motion controls when they really didn't need it. No other game is worse than the Blob when it comes to this. Who the fuck decided that jump should be done by swinging the Wii Remote in a platformer? Usually when it comes to other games that are designed around motion controls completely like Wii Sports, you make space around your room for it. But when it comes to a platformer, you think, oh, I don't need to do that. And then you find yourself banging the frickin' Wii Remote on the table every now and then because it's just... But can you change it in the options? Sure, you can switch between several control schemes, but they all still use motion controls. Well, that sucks. The gameplay is a lot slower when you're forced to use motion controls to attack. But fear not, for the GameCube does not have motion controls, and thus the game feels so much better and faster as a result. For the finishers, it's just a 4-button QuickTime event. It really feels like they added GameCube support as an alternative to motion controls. And thank God too, because this game would be so much worse if I was forced to play a fighting game on the Wii's delayed ass motion controls. Before we go any further, let's talk about the game's presentation. Visually it looks alright for an early Wii game. The models are mixed as Mandy's hair is pulled back for some reason, and Grimm's jaw is modeled but his mouth is a texture. Though these problems are only really noticeable when you close in on them, the characters are animated surprisingly well when you consider the time. The game also has a lot of flashy effects, a decent soundtrack that creates introduce new tracks and bring some in from the show, you've got wacky cartoon sound effects, and everyone reprises their roles. What's really cool is that there's context-sensitive dialogue that activates depending on who beat who.
Take that, silly, ugly friend!
It really brings more life to the game. And you know who else brings more life to the game? Mama! Weird Al Yankovic. Yep, that's right. Weird Al is an announcer for this game. That's pretty cool. They clearly put a lot of love into this game, and it really shows. Lastly, let's talk about the modes. There's a tutorial that teaches you everything you need to know about the game in just a few minutes. There's also a story mode that's only a few minutes long. Someone broke into Grimm's chest and let out all of his mojo. This mojo makes people go mad and fight each other in cartoon violence.
But what kind of sicko would make us fight just for their own amusement?
The gang must figure out who got into his chest, and it's Billy, isn't it? I mean, really, who else in the show sneaks into Grimm's chest as often? Is it really a spoiler if it's that obvious? Well, honestly, though, the AI really knows how to put up a challenge. I was surprised with how engaged I had to be to win. The brain-eating meteor even makes an appearance as a boss, and yes, his song Brains does play here. One thing I do like is that they make a joke at the end of the story mode where Mandy wonders if there's a mode where you could just beat up Billy.
I don't know about the rest of you, but I hope this thing's got a mode where we can just beat on Billy.
And you know what? There is! During the credits, you can beat up Billy in a dark void. That's honestly kind of funny. Not like a ha-ha funny, and not a weird funny either, but like an interesting funny. How many times does a character make a joke about a mode that's that specific, but it actually exists in the game? Not many. Then there's Versus mode. You pick your characters, choose your game mode, and your stage. At the beginning, there are only 6 game modes you can play. Some are self-explanatory, while others are not so much. Last one standing, coin battle, King Reaper, which changes the game from stocks to points, break stuff, where you must break the most amount of stuff in set amount of time, capture and hold, their version of capture the flag, and crush the horde, face waves of enemies, and whoever beats the most wins. Believe it or not, there's even more versus modes that can be unlocked into mission mode. You go through 5 tiers of 9 missions, each of specific challenges. Each one unlocks something new, like concept art, costumes, characters, versus modes, and more. The game is really fun. It's chaotic, insane, and probably one of the best Cartoon Network games out there. But there are some glaring problems that must be addressed. For starters, the game can actually be a little too chaotic at certain points. Sometimes there's just so much going on screen, and it's hard to keep up. CoComelon wishes it was this overstimulating. I wish there was more defense options as well. All you have is this dash and that's it. No block, shield, or parry. You're kinda helpless to a lot of what the game throws at you. But the worst part about the game is that 2 players cannot play as the same character. Yes, you heard right. Only one person can play as Billy. Only one person can play as Mandy. Only one person can play as Grimm, and etc. Are you kidding me? It's a fighting game. Imagine if this is how it was in Street Fighter or Smash Brothers. Hero shooters like Marvel Rivals, I get due to the large teams, but for fighting games, it's never been a problem. They even have alternate costumes, yet not even this changes anything. This is probably the worst part of the game. That's super disappointing. This game is still great though. If I had to make a top 5 Cartoon Network games list, I would gladly put this on there. Even with these issues, I still can't help but to love this game for what it is, and I'd still encourage people to give this game a shot, if you ever find it, that is.
Marathon now continues.
Now, it's 5 Courage Flash games. Next, it's 5 Adventure Time Flash games. Later, it's a review of Taz Wanted. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
You know that day all dogs are supposed to have? What if this is it? Where does that leave you? At night.
Courage the Cowardly Dog, premiering November 12th at 9 in Cartoon Fridays.
Shake, Courage, shake.
Courage the Cowardly Dog. Abandoned as a pup, he was found by Muriel, who lives in the middle of nowhere, with her husband, Eustace Bagg. The series was created by John Dilworth, who I actually got to meet at this year's Creature Feature in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. No joke, I actually finished the script without knowing that he would be there. The day after I was done writing the script, my sister called me and asked if I wanted to go. She said that the voice of Courage would be there, but I was already prepared to say yes because I love horror conventions. We get there, and it turns out my sister was mistaken. It wasn't the voice of Courage, but rather the creator. Then I was like, oh wow, that's one of my biggest horror inspirations, just sitting right there, a few feet away from me. Dear Jesus. I decided to chat with him, tell him how much of an inspiration his work was, and I even showed him this piece of Elizabeth Darlington to show him where my inspirations went. He liked it, though he could have just said that to be nice, but I don't care. You're not taking this away from me, random commenter! Anyway, Courage would become one of Cartoon Network's most unique shows. Many mainly remember it as something that would scare them, and yes, it's true, the show was made to be a horror cartoon for kids. But it was more than just scary. It was able to cover a wide range of emotions. Sometimes it was funny, sad, and even sentimental at times. Some episodes are loud and filled with slapstick, but others are more quiet and somber. You could see something that would scare kids like that blue thing in the Perfection episode, or teach them about the concept about how death can bring new life. It's a show that had the first lesbian couple on the channel, even though they weren't allowed to refer to themselves as that, but who's going to deny it? Even those anti-woke chuds who think that an optional gay side quest is the reason why a video game is bad won't deny what these two are meant to represent. It's an episode that talked about abuse, manipulation, sexism towards men, things that even some shows today that would try to discuss dark subject matter wouldn't even bother with. Then the following episode has a Chinese empress try to take Muriel's bones. I don't say this lightly, but there really isn't another show like Courage. There's so much material to work with, I'm surprised they never made a video game out of it. The only thing we have is this fan project being made on PlayStation Dreams. Oh well, at least we've got Flash games that used to be on CartoonNetwork.com. Until Flash lost its support. Not that it matters, as CartoonNetwork.com doesn't exist anymore. Neither does the studio. But the channel still does. But Adult Swim is slowly taking over the schedule. Fuck off, Warner. Anyway, here's 5 Courage Flash games. What's one thing we all associate with Courage? If your answer was soccer, how? But you would actually be somewhat correct. Not because of anything in the show, I'm not even sure if a soccer ball even appears in the series. There was a dodgeball episode, but I think that's it. But when it comes to Flash games, there is Courage the dribbling dog. Courage is sleeping in bed with a soccer ball as he worries about his dribbling skills. So much so that he has a nightmare that you must help him through.
That reminds me back when you used to give me the beating of a lifetime. You kicked me around the room like a soccer ball.
What do you mean back then? That was last Thursday.
Yeah, but you never make them into videos anymore.
Because nobody wants to see a 29-year-old anxious, ambiguously alternative person kick a stuffed animal around. I don't care about embarrassing myself, but I do care if I get institutionalized. Use O and P for some reason to move Courage left and right to avoid never-ending chairs, lamps, and most terrifying of all, chairs. All inside a dark, infinite void, and be sure to eat some dog food along the way, or Courage will starve. For a second, death screens just happen and go as quickly as they come. What do I do? What do I do? I can't tell if it's because of the game's age or it being run through Flashpoint, but my inputs rarely ever seem to work. Sometimes I press a direction and nothing happens, or Courage will move multiple spaces from a single button press. Most of my deaths come from this problem, hence why you're seeing nothing but rocking chairs. Make this a scummy mobile ad. I can't reach level 2! Insert weird fetish imagery.
I swear, you're just trying to normalize your kinks at this point.
Trying to normalize something would imply that I have shame in it, but I forgot what it was like to be ashamed years ago. This game makes no sense at all. What's the association between Courage and soccer? Why is he dreaming of chairs and lamps and not monsters attacking him? Why is he inside a black void? Was that intentional? Why is the opening shot from behind the house and not in front? The only thing that thematically makes sense about the game is that it takes place in a nightmare. I feel like they just had the idea of an endless runner, but they couldn't figure out what to base it around. But like I said, they could have just made it about avoiding monsters and trying to reach Muriel. That would fit more with the nightmare theme. Maybe the person who made this game just really liked soccer?
Muchas gracias, afición. Este para vosotros.
Come to think of it, there really isn't a lot of information about the development of these online Flash games. Not many devs or artists are credited. In some cases, we don't even know if these were made in studio or if they were commissioned. For all we know, some poor game dev was probably just told to make a title based on the show, and they were given no information on it, so they just did whatever they felt was right. I wonder if we'll ever get more information on these. Hellbound Hound. Oh my goodness, they said a naughty word. They straight up just said, HE double hockey sticks, my pearls are being clutched as we speak. Courage has died and gone to hell. No, seriously, that's the plot. But in the instructions they refer to it as Hades, even though the title has the word hell in it. Make up your dang mind.
Quick, performative YouTubers! Now it's your time to make clickbaity blank didn't age well titles, because we all know you obviously care.
He must guide Courage onto these wooden platforms similar to his old home, the only reminder of where he was from. Be sure not to fall as not to let the poor thing tumble into the fiery pits. No, seriously, that's also in the instructions. How did they get away with making a game about one of their characters going to hell? I don't know, but I'm not complaining. I love it. It's like the urban legend the Suicide Mouse creepypasta is based on. Mickey Goes to Hell. But if it was real. But instead of being a lost short, it's a free Flash game online. The game is simple enough. Just move Courage left and right off the wooden platforms to the next one below. Don't fall too far, or you'll break the next platform you'll land on. You must land on the ones closest to you, which is easier said than done, as the hitboxes of these platforms seem to be a bit too small. Timing these falls with the moving platforms can be a bit tricky too, especially since it seems like all of them go at different speeds. Oh well, it's eternal damnation. I don't know what to tell you, Courage. Maybe you shouldn't have touched your dick or told a tiny white lie. Then maybe you wouldn't have to go through unimaginable horrors for all eternity. Happy Halloween, depending on when you're watching this, but it's absolutely Halloween for Courage. And by that, I mean it's Halloween for him every day, because did you not watch the show? Courage's Halloween? What makes this so special? Okay, well the game takes place on Halloween, and apparently, according to the game, Courage gets attacked by skull PNGs, pumpkin JPEGs, and rotating ghost gifts only on Halloween. And the only way he can beat them is by using a bag of wind, I think. One that I missed this episode. It's a standard shoot 'em up with random rotating obstacles. If said obstacles touches you, then you get scared. If the oh my god I'm gonna shit my pants meter gets filled, then the game's over. Every time you shoot an object, it performs the art of mitosis as Slender Man gets closer. No, seriously, listen to the sound that plays when an enemy gets hit. Oh, I gotta find the 8 pages where my name is in smiledog.jpg. And it's not. With each win, the next level gets harder with more enemies or faster enemies. But it's obvious they programmed these enemies just to bounce around because there's no area they can't get to. So you're gonna have to deal with some bad luck, as enemies will corner you and you get free hits as there's nothing you can do about it. But you can still move while taking damage, so at least that can lessen the blow. Petrified? No. But I am stupefied. Emphasis on the stoopy. Now for probably the most frustrating game on this list, Hallway of Horrors. Protect Eustace as he goes to the kitchen to grab his snack and back to his iconic recliner. But on the way, many ghouls and apparitions from the show will float towards him, but Eustace is apparently losing his eyesight because you have to guide him through by moving objects in front of him.
All the terrors of aging, completely unpredictable and yet inevitable at the same time. Doesn't that just keep you up at night?
Doesn't it keep you up?
I'm not even a real penguin. I'm a stuffed toy, so aging doesn't affect me the same way as humans, so I don't have to worry about my eyesight going on like you.
You don't even have eyes.
What?
Yeah, I only draw you with them. An old dog we used to have ripped them out of you over a decade ago. How the fuck can you still see?
Oh my god, I'm blind!
And apparently Eustace really is blind, because the fridge is the first movable object I encountered. You could just get a snack there. The game is very awkward to control. Some objects just don't move. Either that or the movement option doesn't even register. I'm not even entirely sure what's happening. It is that inconsistent. Maybe his blindness is a part of some kind of illness because Eustace doesn't even sound like himself here. You finally get to the kitchen where you play a game of whack-a-mole, as other monsters like Quack come out from the ground. You must use a frying pan to beat them down and regain health for the final round. Honestly, this part of the game was fun. It was definitely a little awkward, but definitely not as bad. Now for the last round. I can't see! Shut up. V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E used this back to his chair as he deal with double the amount of monsters, but at least you keep your frying pan as you have some form of defense. Too bad the awkwardness of the first stage is turned up to 11 here, and great, I done got bonked in a noodle. This is a fine situation now.
Help me! You ever feel like you just need a vacation from life?
Kinda, but you know I have a therapist and antidepressants, so I don't feel like that as much. Besides, vacations are overrated. They're expensive, obnoxious depending on the time and place, and the entire time you're on it, you're dreading the moment you have to drive back home. It's kind of a nightmare, honestly. Vacation nightmare. By the way, I was just kidding. I would love to visit the beach soon because I like swimming and there's no beaches in the state of Pennsylvania. Muriel and Eustace have been kidnapped, and Courage must fight through waves of lava monsters to save them with his iconic snowball blaster. Yes, he's had this in the show, don't question it. Flash games are like Atari. You could just make up a bunch of shit and no one will question it, because these games are only a few minutes long and their target demographic is stupid children anyway.
Like you were?
Yes, in fact, by the way. As a stupid child who did grow up with this game, I will gladly say that Vacation Nightmare is one of the better Courage games. It's a standard top-down shooter where you must kill all of the lava monsters in each level to progress. They usually start out as tiny blobs, but some will stand up and start to chase Courage. Instead of a health bar, you have a temperature meter. Touching the lava monsters makes it rise up, but that's not the only thing you have to worry about. There's also hot ground that gradually raises your temperature the longer you walk on it. You can grab ice cream cones to cool yourself off. They're all vanilla, and I don't care what anyone says. Vanilla fucks! There's only 6 levels, but this game is longer than any of the others I've played. And it's probably the best one of the bunch. Now, it's 5 Adventure Time Flash games. Next, it's a review of Taz Wanted. Later, it's a remaster of the Ben 10 Protector of Earth review. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Excuse me? Do you know what time it is?
11:30.
Actually, it's Adventure Time! Yeah! What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What time is it? What? What time is it? What? Come on, tell me what time is it? What time is it, guys?
Adventure Time!
A new cartoon coming in April to Cartoon Network.
The late 2000s was a rough time for Cartoon Network. Hell, it was a rough time for TV animation in general, but Cartoon Network was especially hit hard, as in 2009, they would do the one thing that many would claim would start a downfall. They gave real people a shot. 2009 was the first year Cartoon Network had no new animated series premiere, but instead they made a line of live-action shows. Dude, What Would Happen, Destroy Build Destroy, Bobby Says, and Brain Rush were just a few to name. But it really wasn't as bad as many would claim, as CN Reel would only come once a week on a Thursday, and it didn't last that long either. But still, many were afraid that Cartoon Network would become another Nickelodeon or Disney Channel, favoring cheap live-action shows and mistreating their animated properties. And for a short time, that did happen. Billy and Mandy's finale, Underfist, which was also meant to be the start of a new show of the same name, was barely finished. Many creators who worked at the studio left in fear of these changes. It seemed like it was the start of the downfall of the channel. That is until one show came around, advertised by a dancing punch bowl and a kid dressed up in New York screaming, "What time is it?" Well, by the time of writing script, it's 12:33 p.m., but it's also Adventure Time! Created by Pendleton Ward, who worked on The Marvelous Misadventures of Flapjack Pryor, the series focused on a young human boy named Finn and his magical stretching dog Jake, as they go on adventures and face several monsters and challenges in the land of Oo. At first, it was just a goofy show. Hell, the plot of Finn thinking he was the last human didn't come up until the second season, as in the first season we did technically see other humans, like the old ladies in the challenge to the Enchiridion. Adventure Time is famous for its bigger plots and massive lore. It's one of the shows that helped popularize more story-driven cartoons during the 2010s. That's not to say it was the first by all means. Samurai Jack, Total Drama, Teen Titans, and even the original Ninja Turtles back in the 80s would have ongoing stories. But while it's not the first, it did help start a trend. The original series went on from 2010 to 2018, but the franchise would still continue with sequels and spin-offs, like Distant Lands and Fiona and Cake. There's even a preschool show called V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E in production, along with another series and a movie. Not even Ben 10, which is Cartoon Network's highest grossing franchise, was given this much attention. Though I'm not sure if any of these are still happening, as Warner Brothers is Warner Brothers after all. During its run, it also had several video game releases such as Hey Ice King, why'd you steal our garbage? Explore the Dungeon because I don't know, or Pirates of the Enchiridion. But today we're going to be talking about a few of their Flash games that were once free to play on CartoonNetwork.com. When that existed. V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. Based on the episode Return to the Nightosphere, Jake left his phone down in a place where demons crawl. Finn and Jake explore the Nightosphere and a side-scrolling platformer to find it. In this game, you must not only go from one side of the screen to the other, but also collect as many coins as possible as they unlock later levels. Kind of weird to do that since there's only 3 levels in this game, but whatever. It's a pretty solid 2D platformer made in Flash. Finn will constantly be riding Jake, and don't take that the wrong way, shippers. They're brothers. Finn is also a child in this, and Jake is a dog, you bunch of freaks.
Literally no one was thinking that but you.
Oh my dear sweet Icy Pigwiggo. I wish that was the case, but you clearly don't know the cartoon community. Especially the ones that unhealthily obsess over story-driven shows like this one.
Oh, how bad could it be?
Someone got a tour at the studio that animated Voltron for Netflix, secretly took pictures of production art, and blackmailed the crew to make their ship canon, or else they'd leak the images.
For real?
Yep. What's also real is the ability to get an additional short hop in the air and slowly descend to the ground by holding up as Jake constantly makes disgusting noises. Sounds like he found out about the story-driven cartoon community. You can also press down to do a ground pound, which I didn't even know you could even do. I went through the entire first level missing almost 100 coins because I didn't think to try slamming my ass on the ground. You can also attack demons and breakable walls with Finn. At least he's doing something. It's a pretty easy and standard platformer, but it's also pretty solid as well. The 2010s was the era a lot of us missed out on some pretty good Flash games due to it dying out. I guess the old saying is true. You don't know what you have until it's gone. Next is Angry Betty. Why is she angry? I don't know. I didn't know that was such a defining part of her character. Oh no, it's that digital Betty from the episode where she tried to reprogram the Ice King's crown. Okay, I understand now. It's a first-person shooter where you must blast Angry Bettys. Don't shoot the Happy Bettys or it'll break your combo. Don't forget to reload with the button on your left when you're out of ammo because you're going to need it. As you also shoot the projectiles to deflect them. But if you take damage anyway, then don't worry, because Simon will give you a heart you can use to replenish your health with. What a nice lad. I sure hope his lover doesn't become an eldritch god as he never sees her again. This reminds me of that one Neopets game. You know the one. It's eerily similar. Not to say that this game ripped that one off, there must have been a million of these. Some that probably came long before Neopets' game that caused generations of coulrophobia. Even more so than Pennywise or Twinkles the Clown could only dream of doing. Well, I died. At least I got to look at Marceline's hot ass. Hey, you doing okay? You don't look so good. You need some red? You can take some from me anytime.
You wonder why you're single.
Because of how I talk about fictional women? You think I talk to a real woman like this? You've got to have a little faith in me.
You're the one who talks behind a dummy thick OC and draws the most ridiculous proportions.
Touché. B.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E Blitz. In celebration of him getting his own show, let's talk about B.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E Blitz, spelled like B-E-E-M-O for some reason. And it's not just the title that was spelled wrong, because B.I.D.E.O.'s name is spelled like this in every instance of it. It's like the Ben 10 reboot special Alien Extinction, where Ultimate Alien Ben's Ultimatrix was backwards, not just for a single shot, but for the entire thing. Finn and Jake steal the Ice King's secret tapes and put them inside B.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. Now they must run for the treehouse without dropping their little computer friend. You can run back and forth and jump as either Finn or Jake, but you only control the one that's holding B.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. To pass him, you must press the spacebar. Just make sure there isn't anything in your way when you do. Both Finn and Jake will have to deal with different obstacles along the way. Finn will have to deal with a tree stump and a hole in the ground, as Jake has to deal with Gunter. The farther you get through the game, the more you'll have to deal with, like the Ice King charging through and throwing icy projectiles. If you get hit once, you drop B.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. Fail 3 times and it's game over. Honestly, the tossing aspect is a little disorienting, as the character you're not playing as would just run headfirst into any hazard, but I can't tell if this is affecting me in any way, as every time it happens, the one I'm playing as flashes white for a moment. What does this mean? I don't know. Is it the light to the other side, as this is just one of Finn's memories during his dying moments? No, but they would feature the Ice King and ice-related stuff too. This game isn't bad though, just odd. I appreciate that they tried something different with this one though, so I'll give it that. Righteous Quest. Once upon a time, Adventure Time was an innocent series that was just about a human boy and a magical dog exploring the land of Oo, though it didn't take long for that to change. Most of these games came from this era. I mean, imagine what the current games would be like if they were still being made. Press left and right to guide the dead Finn and Jake from death to their next life. Mash the spacebar to hide your grief from losing your lifelong friend. Press the spacebar to make Simon jump on the bricks of dead Lich Kings to talk to his horrifying wife god. No, instead we get games like Righteous Quest, a simple 2D side-scroller starring Finn and Jake, going through different scenarios like from the show, such as get the Enchiridion, find your house keys that Marceline hid, and save Princess Bubblegum from the Ice King. You control Finn and Jake at the same time, almost like they're the same entity. You've got your basic platforming controls. To fend off against enemies, you can throw snowballs at them, which is kinda awkward as they always go at an arc. It's particularly annoying when dealing with these gnome fairies. Not only are they small, but they can fly around, making them even harder to hit. At certain points, you can use Jake's stretching powers to venture through hard-to-reach places. Collecting these Jake icons allows you to unleash a powerful attack that you probably won't even use until you get to the boss. You can collect 5 of these sword pictures to unlock a secret at the end of each stage as well. There are only 3 levels on a boss fight against the Ice King. It's not too long, but for a Flash game it lasts longer than most. It took me almost 20 minutes to get through it. Once again, that doesn't sound like much, but remember, Flash games. You big dum-dum.
If you want to see what these kind of games were like, just go to Newgrounds and pick a random game. They're usually just as long with 10 times the edginess.
And here at Cackling Pumpkins, calling something edgy is a compliment.
We have to clarify as not to get a bunch of angry weirdos writing novels in the comments.
Or you could do that anyway. I don't mind having a good laugh. Let's finish things off on probably the most peaceful game of the bunch, Apple Fetch. Use Jake's stretchy powers to reach all the treasure chests, but there's fruit, mainly apples, across each stage. To truly complete each level, you must clear the entire screen, but there's a catch. With every apple you eat, the longer Jake gets. Why is this a problem? Because this game is basically Snake. If Jake hits a wall or himself, you'll lose, and you'll have to start the level over. Clearing the stage is easy, completing it can be a bit tricky. Just remember, don't hold down the input after you're already started moving in that direction. I've noticed that while doing so, it seems to cache that input. Thus the game thinks I'm still pressing it after turning in a different direction. This is how I lost the most. You may be noticing the 3-star rating at the end of each level. Well, that's because this game used to be an app on mobile devices, though it's supported on the Blue Maximus Flashpoint, so I guess some old apps were originally made with Flash? Huh, the more you know. Ironic considering that Apple and the App Store are one of the big reasons why Flash lost so much support. Apple for some reason saw these free Flash games as competition for the App Store, so despite it, they decided to not have support for the Flash player. Google would later do the same thing for their App Store. Flash was a great software, but corporate greed killed it, and it wasn't just games or cartoons that lost support, but entire websites that were built with the program are no longer accessible because of it. Even though indies are celebrated now, just know that corporations hate the idea of people making their own games, and if the opportunity presented itself, they will do anything to destroy it. Things may seem fine for now with stuff like Itch.io or Nintendo's Indie Directs, but corporations aren't people. They're even more inconsistent than a compulsive liar, and they'll gladly stab you in the back. Just be careful, right?
You are such a miserable human being.
My misery exists for a reason, and I'm not always miserable. This game costed $2.99 on app stores, but I played it for free, and I didn't have to support a corporate studio, so I'd say I'm in a pretty good mood.
Eats just about anything, but give him a choice, and he'll go for the Vegemite sandwich every time. Delicious.
Now, it's a review of Taz Wanted. Next, it's a remaster of the Ben 10 Protector of Earth review. Later, it's a review of Ed, and Eddy the Mis-Edventures. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
For the devil in all of us, now there's a game that feeds it. Taz Wanted. Bad habits have never been this much fun. Rated E for everyone.
Imagine this, it's the 2000s and you're homesick from school, or you successfully tricked your parents into thinking you were sick, you little rascal. Now you get to stay home, play video games, and watch Cartoon Network all day, but the shows they're playing are a bit different from usual. Instead of Ben 10, Foster's, or My Gym Partner's a Monkey, hey, you better watch what you're saying that around. Listen, I know what you mean, that's clearly a cartoon spider monkey voiced by Tom Kenny, but most aren't going to think of that when you say that. You're instead seeing Tom and Jerry and Looney Tunes. Most already know that Cartoon Network came to be because Ted Turner was acquiring the rights to God knows how many animated shows to start a channel that was animation 24/7. Because people of all ages like cartoons.
The cartoon audience is a whopping 44.6% adults. That's about one adult for every kid watching.
But it didn't take long for the studio to start making their own original animated series, though they would always leave some room for the shows that made this network a reality. But why show them at those hours when kids were at school? You just answered your own question, dummy. It would be pretty dumb to air shows that are more familiar to a younger audience during a time when they can't watch TV. The grown-ups, however, are more likely to have the free time to tune in, assuming they didn't just come home after spending 20 hours in the bloody mines! So they'd broadcast shows that they were more familiar with, like the Looney Tunes. Out of this library of wacky characters, the Tasmanian Devil was particularly popular, being featured in most Looney Tunes projects, getting his own show in the form of Tasmania, being the second Looney Tune added to multiverses, and getting several video games, including the one we're talking about today, Taz Wanted.
You're driving up my blood pressure.
Yosemite Sam invades Tasmania and kidnaps both Taz and the She-Devil. The Tasmanian Devil gets locked inside the Yosemite Zoo as the meanest, toughest hellboy in the West tries to turn Taz's island into a theme park. Taz breaks out and must find a way to get back home, find She-Devil, and stop Sam. The story is serviceable, and that's to be expected. This is a Looney Tunes video game. If you're expecting something like The Last of Us or The Story of Undertale, then you're genuinely insane. Visually, this game looks great. Minus some awkward animations here and there, they really did a good job with the presentation of the game. All the characters have a cel-shaded look with a thick outline, and the environments look colorful and perfectly cartoony, even if they may be very blocky. The audio was pretty good too. If you constantly spin with Taz, the noise that plays continuously gets higher in pitch. They really knew their stuff when it came to the presentation of the game. Minus the cutscenes that look very awkward, and the voice acting that sounds very muffled for whatever reason.
You birdie. Damn, little sparrow.
Weirdly enough, the presentation of the game reminds me of the Fairly OddParents breaking the rules. It's almost just like Taz Wanted, even down to the muffled voices.
Gee, hon, I'm not sure we've got time to read comic books. I'm not sure I'm able to read comic books.
Aw, but I haven't read the latest issue yet. Maybe I could get some ideas from the Crimson Chin.
And it's not a coincidence either, as both titles were developed by Blitz Games. Their track record is a bit spotty, as most of their games are licensed titles that can range from surprisingly good to what you would normally expect from these type of games. I don't know about you, but Bratz Forever Diamonds and iCarly on the Wii are genuine masterpieces. If you disagree, I respect your opinion, but you're wrong still, and you should be very ashamed. But they also develop games that many would regard as genuinely good, like Frogger 2, Swampy's Revenge, Fusion Frenzy, and Pac-Man World 3. Such a bizarre studio. The only thing about the presentation that some may not like is the music. Many associate Looney Tunes with orchestra or classical music, but since this is a game that released in 2002, they decided to use rock music instead. Look, the music isn't bad, some of the tracks are actually really good, but this might not be the genre that many would think fits in line with the Looney Tunes. Same goes for The Simpsons Hit and Run, but hey, I don't have a problem with it. I miss when rock music played in children's cartoons. It genuinely fucks! You're probably wondering why the game is called Taz Wanted. Well, after breaking out of his cage, Yosemite puts wanted signs all over the place, all with Taz's face on them. He must destroy every single one in each level to progress. Think of this game as something like Super Mario 64, where you have these semi-big open levels that all have a special collectible hidden around the stage that are required to beat the game. But instead of stars, it's signs. Each one can either be destroyed on arrival, or they'll require you to solve some kind of puzzle to break them another way. A lot of these methods will need some trial and error, but it's not the exact same as Mario 64 or similar titles like Sunshine or Odyssey. One major difference is that in Mario's Adventures, you don't have to collect every star, moon, or shine sprite to complete a level. You can leave some behind and move on to the next stage, and come back to get everything else later. But in Taz Wanted, you must destroy every sign to be able to move on to the next stage. This wouldn't be so bad, but some of these signs can be really confusing to reach. Sure, you can open a map to tell you where the signs are, but that doesn't tell you how to reach or destroy them, just their general location. Sometimes the method to destroy a sign is in a completely different spot on the map. At times, I'm left wandering around the stage like a dip trying to figure out what I'm supposed to do to get to the next sign that's just out of reach. This wouldn't be so bad if I was able to move on to the next stage after destroying 5 out of the 7 signs, instead of making me get them all. I realize that this is the biggest problem of the game, and I think that many would regard this game as one of the better licensed titles of the era if they had a minimum number to progress. Imagine if in Mario 64, you had to get every single star in a level before leaving the stage. That would make some of the most iconic levels in the game so much more annoying. Even completionists would want the freedom to leave a stage incomplete so they can come back and finish it later. Hell, some of the game is even designed around that, considering that you have to unlock some of the power-ups needed to complete these areas. Now, that may make it seem like that I think this game is bad. Far from it. I actually think this is a pretty solid license game. Each level is filled to the brim with destructible environments. Trees, crates, statues, and other such things are placed all over the level. While it's not required to do so, you can try and destroy everything in that level. As you spin through the area, a percentage will appear in the top right corner, showing you how much of the level has been wiped out. And you'll even hear the disembodied voice of Yosemite Sam say the same 3 lines over and over with little to no space between them. That's genius when you consider the target demographic. Not Sam's voice lines, mind you, the destruction. Some kids just want to destroy stuff without getting in trouble. They'll take the time to build big structures with wooden blocks just to smack it down as soon as they're done. Hell, a lot of us adults like to see stuff get destroyed as well. Why do you think some people go to monster truck rallies or rage rooms? Violence is a part of our culture. Nay, our history. From tossing barrels of tea during the Boston Tea Party to any great struggle throughout time, it is a necessary evil we use to change the world, letting our corporate rulers remember that we outnumber them by the thousands and we can easily tear down their empire. And for some reason, we just don't do that. I really don't get it. But what I do get is how satisfying the spin attack is. Taz is known to spin in a tornado-like formation and destroy everything in his way. I've already mentioned how the sound keeps getting higher in pitch the longer you hold the button, but what I didn't tell you is just how versatile the move really is. It can be used to activate switches, hit buttons, attack enemies, and move around the level as it increases your speed at the cost of control. You can even use the spin to get to hard-to-reach areas. Some slopes are too steep for Taz to go up on his own, but a good spin can make the distance. What's not as satisfying are the costumes. If you find a phone booth, you can enter it to put on a costume, which gives you access to new abilities, most of which are not required to beat the game, and while I appreciate the variety, most of the abilities they offer aren't very useful. I just pass on them unless I absolutely have to use them. If there's something that infuriates me about the game, it's 2 things. First is Gladiator Tunes, where you enter a rolling ball challenge against Daffy Duck. Here you must run over these lit platforms to change them to your color. Have the most when the timer ends and you win. Sounds easy enough. Too bad the magnets throw you everywhere. The bumpers send you flying. Platforms won't change colors if you're going too fast. And Daffy rarely ever seems affected by any of this.
Okay, Double, now I gotcha.
This is such an annoying challenge, and here's the thing, I like ball levels in games. I'm one of those insane lunatics unleashed to actually like the ball levels in games like Crash Bandicoot Wrath of Cortex. But even I find this annoying. The second is the animal control. These guys will stand around each level, and if you get too close, they'll swing their net at you. And getting caught sends you to an earlier point in the level back inside of a cage. This is especially annoying in the final level, where it feels like they're placed at the worst spots, and they'll get you almost every time. I almost considered quitting this game for this exact reason, but I didn't. Because I don't know, shut up! But when I take it all into consideration, this game is pretty alright. But it's a frustrating kind of alright, where the game could be good or even great if they just made some small alterations, such as nerfing the animal control guys, and most importantly, having a minimum of signs you can destroy rather than forcing the player to destroy all of them to complete a level and giving them the freedom to go back and finish it later. It's not a bad game, and I might play it again sometime. But I probably won't beat it again.
Ready to use your Ben 10 alien powers, like the oozing chest of Ghost Freak. Load, digest, the super stretching arms and oozing back of Wildvine, and release alien goo from Stinkfly. Now discover the mystery of the planetary powder sets. Add the powder, water, then reveal the alien inside the planetary gel. DNA alien heroes and planetary powder sets, only from Bandai.
Now, it's a remaster of the Ben 10 Protector of Earth review. Next, it's a review of Ed, and Eddy the Mis-Edventures. Later, it's 5 Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends flash games. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Oh, it's a rerun!
In a city where chaos rules, only one man can save humanity from total destruction.
Around the days of the late 90s and early 2000s, there was a strange explosion of licensed video games that essentially took over the market in the worst way possible. Before the days of smartphones and apps, many studios and companies saw the popularity of video games and decided to use the industry as either a way to expand their brand or simply market it to an impressionable audience. It didn't matter what you were, an upcoming movie, an anime or cartoon, a board game, a Disney or Nickelodeon sitcom, or even a fast food chain. If you even just existed during that time period, you would have a video game made about you. But most licensed games were often criticized for their low quality, or how rushed they often were to still be relevant with their respective property. In some rare occasions, though, we got licensed games that were pretty good for what they were. SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom, Simpsons Hit and Run, and Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi are just a few to name.
You got 10 minutes, Gramps.
Yeah.
As an instant hit that premiered in 2005, a game based on Cartoon Network's Ben 10 was of course made to go along with the show. This resulted in 2007's Ben 10 Protector of Earth, released on PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable, the Nintendo Wii, and an alternate version of the game for the Nintendo DS. For this video, I will be focusing on the main console version of the game. Does Ben 10 Protector of Earth stand on its own alongside SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom or Hit and Run? Or does it repeat the same formula of V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E the Game Unpolished Edition starring famous character that the past eras were absolutely filled with? Well, let's find out here on Ben 10 The Legacy. While Ben is sleeping, a mini V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E drone flies into the rust bucket and saps several samples of DNA from the Omnitrix. When Ben wakes up, he wonders what's wrong with the device, as many of Ben's worst enemies come back to haunt him. The Forever Knights, Kevin 11, Ghost Freak, Dr. Animo, and several others, some by chance and others seemingly working alongside a greater force, as many of them were powered up by Omnitrix crystals. These crystals are filled with DNA from the Omnitrix, acting as a power source to whoever is in possession of it. Ben, alongside his grandfather Max and cousin Gwen, must drive through the country as they restore the Omnitrix and solve this mystery. The story almost feels like a special or straight-to-TV movie plot that they could have made with how much is in this game. New and old locations, familiar threats in almost every level, leading to a giant finale involving Earth being slowly absorbed into the null void. They did not have to go through this kind of effort, could have just slapped together a simple story, but I fully appreciate what they chose instead. Even the writing and the cutscenes feel similar to the show, as the original voice actors also reprised their roles.
To stop the Forever Knights is to deprive the Earth of its last, best hope.
Enoch doesn't offer hope to anyone but himself.
We should find him before he makes a bad situation even worse.
Not only this, but for being a late PS2 and early Wii title, the game looks fantastic, taking a cel-shaded look with black outlines. However, backgrounds are given smaller outlines and more textures. You can tell that they were trying to recreate the show's art style in a 3D environment, and they absolutely nailed it. They even used music from the show for different stages and fights. It really does feel like Ben 10 in video game form, rather than just generic games starring Ben Tennyson. Though the only thing I'd say looks bad is the cutscenes. Characters look more stiff, as their faces are either just 2D textures that are incredibly choppy, or mouths that look like Muppets that just flap around. The game looks better in action, as the textured faces are farther from the screen, making it look less obvious and jarring. But doing some research, I discovered that the PSP version is a massive downgrade in the visuals. The outline of the characters were removed, so the models almost look incomplete. I guess there was some limitation that came with the PSP, or maybe just some issue that came from putting the game on the system, as most likely the game wasn't developed with the PSP in mind. I'd bet the PS2 or Wii versions were more the primary focus of the game. The game itself is a 3D styled beat-em-up with some minor platforming. You face some enemies, and once they're done, you continue through the stage as you rinse and repeat. You start off each stage as Ben, and while he can fight on his own, there is no reason to, as he's the weakest character to play as. That's where the Omnitrix comes in. You can turn Ben into his alien heroes, but you only start with two, being Heatblast and Forearms. Not only are these good choices due to their popularity, but also as they show off the differences that come with each form. Heatblast is the all-around character with a heavy emphasis on projectiles, some of which can light enemies on fire, causing constant damage. He can glide and absorb fire around him. Forearms is a slow but beefy tank. His moves are slower and leave him wide open with massive end lag, but the damage they can do is massive. He can also throw boulders as a special, and move heavy objects. Speaking of projectiles, I've noticed if you use a ranged move that you're not stuck firing in the direction that you activated the move, as you can even change the direction while the startup animation is playing. That's something that I really love and wish more games took advantage of. Most likely it was an oversight in development, but much like the wave dash in Melee or the back long jump in Super Mario 64, it's one that I'm glad snuck in. You have a light attack, heavy attack, special move, the ability to block, and double jump. As you beat enemies, you gain experience used to unlock other moves accessed through button combinations. Many of these moves are deadly and also fun to look at. Once again, for the time, the specials look great. You most likely won't have all of these moves unlocked by the end of the game, unless you return to earlier stages, as there were just that many. But I wouldn't rely on these moves, as the more powerful a move is, the more energy you consume from the Omnitrix. Much like in the show, Ben can only be in alien form for so long, as a timer goes down. Using powerful attacks and combo moves uses more energy and gives you less time. This actually gives you a reason as to why you would use light moves over heavy moves, rather than just the power and speed difference. Once you lose all of your energy, you turn back into Ben, and can't go hero again until the Omnitrix recharges. My advice? Just use Ben's special, which is a Kingdom Hearts style dodge roll, and circle around the enemies until you can transform again. Thankfully, it doesn't take that long to recharge and get back into battle. If you lose all of your health in alien form, you instantly turn back into Ben. You can only truly die if you fall off a cliff or lose all of your health as Ben.
I just wanted to go hero.
But there is no life system, as all that happens is that you're sent back to an earlier part in the stage, so there isn't that much of a consequence for losing. There are also power-ups hidden throughout the stage, some that regenerate health and Omnitrix energy, some that give you extra power, invincibility, and so on.
There are also 3 Sumo Slammer cards hidden as well. Unlocking them all in a stage unlocks a video clip you can watch of a certain transformation from the show. Don't bother trying to collect the Sumo Slammer cards until you've unlocked the other transformations, as some require you to return to earlier stages with these additional forms. These other forms are Accelerate, the fastest alien with a special that allows him to slow down time and create a track for himself to blast through, causing multiple hits and tossing weaker enemies in the air. Cannonbolt, who rolls into a ball to rev up these ramps, and he's actually the best transformation in the game, as many of his unlockable moves completely destroy enemies and bosses. Dr. Animo was a joke, not because of the boss itself, but because of how overpowered Cannonbolt really is. He's your main man if you want to get through this game quickly. Lastly, there's V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E, who has the best physical range, covers the most area, and can grapple around with these spiked balls in the air. But V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E isn't the last thing that you unlock, as throughout the game you can even unlock the ability to switch between transformations, but unfortunately you still obey the limiter. But that's okay, as shortly after, you unlock Master Control. Not only can you switch between transformations, but can stay as them for as long as you want regardless of what move you use, but losing all of your health still reverts you back to Ben. This was every kid's dream back then, not only to use the Omnitrix, but also to its fullest potential. This was one of those games that gave you more toys to play with as you progressed through it. But the only downside is that the game gets a little repetitive sometimes. It can be annoying to fight a few enemies just to take 10 steps forward and be locked in another fight. Maybe if the game allowed you to skip some fights, it would be balanced as you wouldn't get the experience or maybe even lose some rewards if you just ran past them. But it's not that bad as there's a lot of enemy variety. Each couple of stages has you face certain enemy types, which are also hints towards the boss you're about to face soon. Monster aliens from Season 3, Ghost Freak. Mutants, Dr. Animo. Forever Knights, Enoch. The only enemies you'll face consistently are Vilgax's drones, which you'll see throughout the entire game. A lot of these enemies aren't hard to deal with, but they can easily overwhelm you if you're not careful, especially since you can still receive damage after you've been knocked out. There are no invincibility frames, which can make things a little annoying and may even result in some cheap deaths. Bosses are a mixed bag, as some are surprisingly challenging, while others are annoying or aren't that interesting. After you reduce an enemy's health down, you have to use a reaction command sequence to finish them off. But you can only start the sequence as Ben. Some of the best bosses include Kevin, Enoch, Clancy, Hex, and Vilgax. Ghost Freak is annoying though, and Enoch in his mech, which is on the cover by the way, is boring and time consuming. Despite those minor issues, the game is actually pretty good, especially when you take into consideration the era this game was made in and the trend of licensed games. It may not be brought up on the same level as SpongeBob Battle for Bikini Bottom or Simpsons Hit and Run, but it's still a fun game that just gets a little tiring sometimes. There would be more Ben 10 games in the future, but those are more like the blander licensed games as they're a huge step back in quality. While I haven't played the Omniverse or Reboot games, I think I can safely say that Ben 10 Protector of Earth is the best Ben 10 game in the franchise. And if you find it in a retro video game store, be sure to pick it up and tell Cartoon Network to remaster it.
Hurry up! We're not even supposed to be on this channel!
Cartoon Network is. Ooh, hey, pretty mama.
Johnny! Oh, Cartoon Network's got this thing right. It's called Cartoon Fridays, and we're on it. Hurry up! Okay! These are our shows. All your favorite cartoons back to back, with a new episode every Friday. They're on Fridays at 7, over on Cartoon Network. You might like to switch over there now.
Somebody's coming!
We'll see you over there.
Hey!
Oh, dear.
Now, it's a review of Ed, and Eddy the Mis-Edventures. Next, it's 5 Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends Flash games. Later, it's a review of Ben 10 Alien Force, the game. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Straight from the cul-de-sac, the TV show you know and love is now a video game. In this tag team adventure, you switch heads on the fly to use their unique abilities. Use the batter head to break through obstacles. Use the trample head to extend your reach. use the Tower of Eddy to sneak up and hurl the El Mongo Stink Bombs. Ed, Ed, and Eddy, the Mis-Edventures. Available now. Rated E for everyone.
That was good, Eddy.
Whatever.
Ed, Ed, and Eddy, created by Danny Antonucci in 1999, focusing on three boys of the same name messing around in their cul-de-sac and trying to scam kids out of their quarters to buy jawbreakers. First there's Eddy, the ringleader of the group, who loves to perform scams. He's selfish, greedy, and hypes up his brother way too much. Ed is a lovable oaf, who's dim-witted but still cares for his friends, loves animals, and is obsessed with comic books and monster movies. Ed with double D's. No, sorry, not those. Also, that is a child? Why would you want giant tits on a kid? What is wrong with you? Leave! He's referred to as Double D. He's the anxious, careful neat freak who is also the brains of the group and often the most rational. While all three Eds are generally disliked by those in the cul-de-sac, Double D seems like the one they hate the least. There's even a scene where the bully Kevin is happy to see him, tries to reason with him, and even gets his help to get over his fear of needles. Over the years, I've begun to realize that Kevin isn't really a bully. Yeah, he makes fun of the Eds and terrorizes them, but usually after they do something wrong. You never see him bully any of the other kids on the cul-de-sac, not even Jimmy, the weakest, frailest one of the bunch, or Johnny, who talks to a plank of wood. They're easy targets, but Kevin is usually nice to them. The only time he ever bullies anyone besides the Eds is when they act out. He's less of a bully and more of a big brother to his neighborhood. Hell, he was the first person to help up Eddy after he finally admitted his faults in the finale. It's like he was waiting for them to realize the error of their ways so he could accept them with open arms. The show is probably the zaniest animated series Cartoon Network has ever made, from its extreme violent slapstick to its numerous amount of out-of-pocket sound effects. Every hit has so much weight to it, even more than most action shows, especially the Ben 10 reboot. It's no wonder this became Cartoon Network's longest running animated series, going from 1999 to 2009. Okay, sure, Teen Titans Go has gone on longer since it started in 2013 and is still making new episodes 12 years later, but technically that's more of a DC animated series than a Cartoon Network original. And if we're gonna go by franchise rather than just series, both Adventure Time and Ben 10 have it beat. As while Adventure Time's original series went on for 8 years, they also had several spin-offs like Distant Lands and Fiona and Cake, and Ben 10 has 14 years worth of animated shows and movies. But when it comes to single series created and produced by Cartoon Network, the Eds still hold that mantle. They've even had several video games. I mean, of course they did. Most of their lifespan came during the era where licensed games came out non-stop, completely flooding the market. This brings us to Ed, Ed, and Eddy, the Mis-Edventures.
I am cool like a cabbage, guys.
The Eds are known for getting into trouble and creating new scams, and this game is no different. You run around the cul-de-sac as different objects and locations represent levels, most of which are based on episodes of the show. If you're familiar with this channel or the other games I've talked about before, you would know that these kind of games were very common in the late 90s to the early 2000s, where they would just drop you into a big hub and basically tell you, no, run around and find stuff to do. Now leave me the hell alone. Daddy wants to watch some NASCAR.
Going down the backstretch.
Rusty Wallace can't kick his ass! One big difference between these games and Eddy the Mis-Edventures is that there is no big story to tie all these together. There is no reason why they're going to all these locations, and none of the level stories connect in any way. Some would say that's bad, but I would actually say the opposite here. The show was never known for having a big story or taking itself seriously, minus maybe the finale Big Picture show, or the time they decided to put the characters in school for some reason. I'd be willing to bet it was because some executive said the ratings went down by 1 decimal, add a new character, like so many of them do, but then they said, yeah, but we will add a new location. It's like a character, but they stand in it. Or maybe fan projects like Peach Creek, for example, which you all should watch because it's pretty freaking neat. But all I'm saying is that the game works by not having a story. It makes it like an interactive version of a season of the show, with each level being a different episode. Each one is even introduced with a title card and a 2D animated segment. Granted, it's not on the same level of quality as the show, but it's still appreciated all the same. Now, I've heard some people talk about the visuals of the game and how questionable some of it is. Yes, the models do look very off, especially when you look at Kevin and his massive fucking chin and T-Rex arms, Eddy looking like a floppy Muppet, and American McGee's Johnny 2x4. But I would like to play devil's advocate and defend the game's visuals. Yeah, the models look off, but it's only during cutscenes or seeing them in a default T-pose that make them look strange. But the game actually looks great in my opinion. The models work for wacky scenarios, they're animated pretty decently, and one thing I'm astonished with is that they somehow replicated the shaky lines from the show. Now, I'm sure today you could probably do this very easily with something like a Blender, but you have to remember that 3D animation was not only more primitive in the mid-2000s, but this was also a 6th generation video game, put on consoles like the PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. Now, I don't know much about 3D animation or modeling, I just know how to press E to extrude in Blender, but I'd be willing to bet that wasn't an easy thing to accomplish. I really can't think of another game that had shaky lines like this. The environments look good, but they don't have any outlines on them like the models or backgrounds of the show do. Still, I would say the game was pretty spot on when it came to translating the look of the show to a mid-2000s console game. Besides the shaky outlines, Ed, and Eddy is also famous for its sound design. Nearly everything any character does comes with some strange noise, and every impact feels more violent than a bad sequel to an 80s slasher, all because of its sound design. Well, the game recreates that too, bringing in sound effects from the show and applying them to actions in game. It actually works really well, minus when the sound effects just don't play for some reason, or others just seem to be missing, but you get my point.
This should work.
From the visuals, sound design, to everything else, the game's aesthetic is pretty good. But what about the actual game? Well, fucking calm down, I'm getting to it, Jesus! You know, they say patience is a virtue. In the game, all 3 Eds are always present, as you can switch between them with the press of a button. There was also a lot of games like this at the time, as there would be a cast of characters running around as you or several players can switch between them. Nicktoons Unite, Narnia, Shrek 2, and probably the most well-known example, Sonic Heroes. You control each Ed as you venture your way through the level, solving puzzles and completing objectives along the way. While there are enemies that will block your path like these squirrels or spiders, the game isn't about fighting, which is a shame because a 3D arena brawler with these sound effects and the right level of animation would be sick. If problem solving isn't your thing, then this game might not be for you. I've heard many people say that they find the game boring for this reason, and honestly, I can't blame them. Of course, this isn't me saying that the game is bad, but more so that it depends on the kind of person you are. The game is about using each of the Ed's abilities to get through the level. You can also group together to make a different formation depending on who you're controlling. Eddy can throw stink bombs at enemies to make them dizzy, and form the Tower of Ed to get all the Eds through narrow areas at once. Ed can be a woodpecker, except with dirt. Carry and throw objects and form Batter Ed, which allows you to charge through destructible environments. Lastly, Double D can fix gears or technology, use a slingshot, and form the Trample Ed, which can be used to retire places when it wants to work. Like 50% of the time. I have no idea why it doesn't. I'm standing in front of the platform. I'm trying to make this okay? There are also quite a bit of collectibles, and even though they're not required to get, they do have a purpose. Collecting Jawbreakers unlocks cheats, such as the traditional Big Head mode. Some are hidden throughout the level, while others can be claimed by chasing a chicken that spawns in. If you don't catch it in time, then you'll have to try again later. You can also collect coins, which can be used to buy more Jawbreakers at the dispenser in the playground. There is a bit more jankiness here than what I'd personally like, such as in the stealth level where Eddy is having an allergic reaction and must hide from the other kids to avoid embarrassment. It's hard to tell when you're too close to the kids, so you're bound to get caught a lot. You can hide behind poles in the Tower of Ed, but that also seems to be inconsistent. Usually the AI works pretty well, but I've had moments where other characters got stuck behind a wall and weren't able to come out. There was even a glitch where I fell into water at the last stage, and I wasn't able to jump out. No matter what I did or where I went, there was no way to escape. Some functions even got locked out, so I had no choice but to reset the console and just pray to great googly moogly that I wouldn't fall in again. And in a fight against the cankers where you have to knock over the poles holding them up, one of them just didn't register, so I had to die and just hope it would work the next time. A mid-2000s licensed game being buggy isn't that shocking, but man did I run into a lot of problems here. It seems like the devs needed another month or two to polish things up.
But besides that, the game is pretty alright. Its presentation is spot on, the AI works pretty well, and the game isn't too confusing, but it's obvious that the game needed a little more time to be finished, and it's not going to be a game for everyone. If you find it for a cheap price, then maybe give it a shot, but be mindful before making a purchase. You wouldn't want to feel like you just got scammed. You see what I did there? Laugh! Laugh, I command you! Laugh, I made a reference and a clever play on words!
I'm a horsey! Whoa! I pooted. Whoa!
Cartoon Network.
Yes!
Now, it's 5 Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends Flash games. Next, it's a review of Ben 10 Alien Force, the game. Later, it's a remaster of the Scooby-Doo and the Phantom Virus review. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Everyone, gather round. Meet Foster's newest imaginary friend.
Wouldn't have thought that up.
After the Powerpuff Girls, creator Craig McCracken pitched a new series to Cartoon Network, Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. A series taking place in a world where kids' imaginary friends become real sentient beings, but eventually, kids may grow out their old thought-up pals. So what happens to them? There's no hope for him now, Travis. You know what you've got to do. Yes, Mama, but he was my friend. I'll do it. Do imaginary friends in this world have rights? If you kill one, do you get tried as a murderer? There's a lot of questions I have about this universe. If a kid outgrows their imaginary friend, they can be sent to Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, a place where imaginary friends can live together in hopes of finding a new child to live with. Mac, being pressured to send his imaginary friend Blue away, decides to take him to Foster's instead, without realizing that would put him up for adoption. Mr. Harriman makes a deal with him that if Mac goes to Foster's every day, then he won't put Blue up for adoption. Do you think that sleep paralysis demons become real in this world? What if someone has schizophrenia? Do their visions become real? Or what if someone has PTSD? It is a kid's show, you man-child! And I still have too much imagination to be wasted in a cubicle. This show was comparably different from Craig's last show, The Powerpuff Girls, a series that had more of an emphasis on action with some comedy, having an art style with sharp edges and thick outlines, to a show that was primarily a comedy with a soft rounded out style with no outlines. It's similar to how Genndy Tartakovsky went from Dexter to Samurai Jack. It really goes to show how some artists don't need just one art style. I'll always appreciate it when a creator does something different with their art. That's not to say that I think it's bad when an artist sticks to the same art style, because they can further develop it as time goes on. I just think it's neat when a creator tries something different. Does the military send out imaginary tank people or jet creatures out to battle? Does that mean there's no need to send human soldiers? Are people afraid that imaginary friends will take their job, much like how some are afraid that technology and AI will take theirs? Do people imagine giant monsters just to make them fight to the death for their own enjoyment? Better question, why are you like this? That is a good question. Anyway, Foster's Flash Games! I've talked about this game in an old version of Flashback, now it's time to do it again because I don't know, but I'll keep it short. Wilt's Wash and Swoosh lets you play as the friendliest friend in Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Wilt, the tall red basketball playing guy who can't say no. Literally, there was an entire episode about that. Great, now I'm making the same references as the last time too. I swear I'm becoming like the old man that just tells stories of his life. In this game you shoot balls of dirty laundry into the massive amount of washing machines that Foster's has to offer. But you can't just use any of them, only the ones that are open. If you hit ones that are closed, the ball of sweat and embarrassment will now reflect Wilt as it bounces back down. This is one of those how long can you last kind of games, as the timer on the left is going down, but making shots brings it back up. If you have the hand-eye coordination of a 7-year-old, then this game will never end. I had to make myself lose just to get footage of the game over screen. Is it bad that this game is too easy? Dude, it's a short free Flash game that was put on CartoonNetwork.com. What is there to complain about? Definitely not the visuals, as the show was also made with Flash, so that meant that almost any game made for the web will automatically be authentic to the show's design. But unless you're some Nintendo fan that thinks that Nintendo is the only good game developer and innocent multi-billion-dollar corporation, then I'm pretty sure no one can find anything to complain about here. Remember that scene in the original Foster's movie where Blue is up for adoption and is being taken by some little girl? Is it Eduardo, Wilt, and Coco try to keep her away from him until Mac arrives? Well, they decide to make that into a whole game with a friend in need. Pass Blue to the next friend by using the arrows on screen to determine the strength and angle of the shot to whoever's next in line. Giving it too less or too much will end the game. There's a lot you have to keep in consideration while playing this game. Not only do you have to learn just how far each throw goes, but you also can't let this little shit touch you. God, I hate kids. Or it's also game over. But make sure that while she doesn't get too close to you, that she also doesn't get too close to the next character waiting for you to pass Blue, because if you don't, you might not have enough time to pass him again. And we don't want to know what this little girl has in store for Blue, or rather, Tiffany.
No joke, I'm actually scared to see this alternate timeline.
We all wondered what it would be like if Team Rocket finally caught Pikachu, or if Wile E. Coyote got his hands on the Roadrunner, but no one wonders what would happen if this little demon adopted Blue.
For good reasons, of course. Shit would probably either get way too real or annoying, or worse, both.
This game is a lot trickier than it seems, so much so that despite only being a few minutes long, I was never able to beat it as a kid. And thus, as a stupid child, I never knew that there was an ending. Yes, you can beat the game, as there is a bar up top that shows how close Mac is to Foster's. And as a sad, pathetic man-child who's nearly 30, I was able to fend off the hellspawn and allow 79 episodes and 3 movies to exist within this timeline. Surely the greatest accomplishment of someone my age can only dream of.
Whatever helps you sleep at night.
Oh yes, cheese. Once thought to be an imaginary friend that Mac made in his sleep, but was actually made by Louise. Cheese Louise. You get it! Cheese was particularly popular during the Yes era of Cartoon Network.
Yes!
Going from April 2006 to September of that same year, many of CN's quirkier characters were used for bumpers. Yes refers to Billy and Mandy's Fred Fredburger. Cheese would be used for many of these bumpers, which caused these two to become an odd pair, even being referenced in the Jellystone Cartoon Network crossover, both attacking Johnny Bravo. This era also featured other similar characters like Clam from Camp Lazlo, and everyone's favorite, Squirrel Boy. It's obvious that they were trying to emulate the random era of the internet that was popular at the time.
Why are you milking this section for so long?
Because the game we're talking about now only needs a few seconds to be described, and that is saying something for being a Flash game. Whee! Starring Cheese.
Jesus, calm down, it's not that serious!
You play as Mac and Blue as you must hold their self-made buggy down the hill as Cheese rides it. Why not just let it go so it can be enjoyed properly? Because that'll scare Cheese, and it'll give him the heebie-jeebies, and you'll have to clean up the remains of his lactose intolerance. Just kidding, he'll just scream as there's no winning or losing this game. It's just a gag game. You hold the button to slow down the cart and release to let it go. There is no end game. This is all there is. Clearly this game is made as a joke, and considering the amount of quality of the games they had based on the show, I honestly don't mind. It's a goof! That's all it is.
Your existence is a goof.
Thank you. Mid-flight snack. Eduardo, Mac, and Blue want a midnight snack, but instead of just getting it like normal human beings, they decide to bounce each other up on this board as he must grab every piece of candy on their way. It's similar to Wilt's Wash and Swoosh, as the game can technically go on forever. You move each character with the mouse and click the jump, but remember, as soon as they touch the board, you immediately switch characters, so you'll also have to move the mouse to the other side immediately. It takes a bit to get used to, but it's honestly a pretty cool idea. You can also get combos by collecting more than one snack at a time and refill the timer by grabbing the star.
Wait a second, I thought Mac wasn't allowed to have sugar or he'll go crazy!
Yeah, you're right. Well, this game probably came before that episode released, and hang on! I thought you said I was the man-child. How would you remember that?
Well, how can I forget any nostalgic information when I'm around you so much?
Whatever helps you sleep at night. I've got to say that not only do these games look good as they're made with the same software as the show, but the audio is typically great as well. The music is authentic to the show, and they even recorded new lines with the original voice actors, which is something that doesn't typically happen for these tiny Flash games, as much as you would think it would anyway.
Look out, air blue coming through! Woohoo!
Sometimes they just use clips from the show, or get some guy from The Office doing an impression. That's assuming they even have voices to begin with. Foster's probably had some of the best Flash games when it came to their presentation. Your rating? Yummy! The kids at Foster's, who are for some reason real human kids, are having nightmares that are manifesting into monsters attacking the home. Mac and Blue are assigned to suck up the creatures and disease that the kids are producing to prevent further creatures being made. Honestly, I'm shocked they never explored this idea in the show. The closest thing we've seen is Mac believing that he accidentally made cheese in his sleep, but this didn't turn out to be the case. So my schizo rambling from the intro wasn't for nothing!
I bet you feel real validated right now.
I sure do.
I was being sarcastic.
I know, and I don't care. One thing you might have noticed is that this game is like a free Flash version of Luigi's Mansion, though I'd be willing to bet that the Ghostbusters were their main inspiration. Yes, Luigi's Mansion was out by then, but most GameCube games at the time weren't talked about as much as other games on the PlayStation 2. That, and at the time, many were mixed on the game. However, I love Luigi's Mansion, easily one of my top 5 favorite GameCube games. But I guess I can't discount it as a possibility that this game may have been inspired by Luigi's Mansion. You run around the house sucking up robots, ghosts, mummies, and whatever this thing is. Honestly, I love the creature design here. Not only is it in line with the show, but these designs just look cool. I especially love this wobbly ghost, and this stitched up Tim Burton creature that hides in the shadows. It's a pretty alright game filled with bosses, weapon upgrades, and much like every other Foster's game on CartoonNetwork.com, it looks great. But there's one major flaw that ruins the experience. When an enemy walks on screen, they immediately shoot a projectile, giving you no time to react to it. Getting damage is annoying, as while there are invincibility frames, they only come when you're knocked on the ground after getting hit. As soon as you get up, you're bound to take another one, especially since the amount of time between each enemy shot is roughly the same time as it takes for Mac or Blue to get up. Some enemies seem to hurt you without projectiles or even touching you, so I don't really understand how some of it works. Such a shame. If they just fixed that one problem, then this game would probably be one of the best games on the site. And don't get me wrong, for a free Flash game from the mid-2000s, this is still good, but also very flawed. Now, it's a review of Ben 10 Alien Force, the game. Next, it's a remaster of the Scooby-Doo and the Phantom Virus review. Later, it's a review of Kids Next Door, Operation Video Game. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Ben 10 is back in a brand new video game. Play as all new aliens. Team up to take down the hybrid and save the planet from destruction. Ben 10 Alien Force in stores now. Rated everyone 10 and up.
Much like Summer Vacation, the original Ben 10 couldn't last forever, but as a franchise, Cartoon Network thought otherwise. I mean, can you blame them? It would eventually become their most successful IP, getting on the top 100 highest grossing media franchises in the world. Ben Tennyson is on the same leagues as Mario, Sonic, Pikachu, Mickey Mouse, Spider-Man, and whatever this thing is. So even though the original series ended in 2007 after 4 seasons, they already had a sequel underway, 2008's Ben 10 Alien Force. Taking place 5 years after the original series, Ben is now living a normal life without the Omnitrix, despite in the original series hating the idea of being normal and wanting the power to help people. But we need that dramatic scene of him putting the Omnitrix back on, because this series is dork. I mean, literally, most of the episodes take place at night, so whenever we'd see the characters in the middle of the day or in a lit room, they looked off because we're so used to seeing them in the shade. So he gets it back after he finds out that Grandpa Max is missing and there's a new threat called the Hybrid. Ben must form a team to stop the upcoming invasion, all without his mentor. The series is beloved for its storytelling, characterization, and aiming towards an adolescent audience. The new aliens like Humongosaur, Big Chill, and Echo were all cool. My favorites were Brainstorm, because he was a big crab, and Goop, because he was a big goop. Heck, Jetray actually influenced the name of my first YouTube channel, Jetray102, and it was nice to see Ben finally make amends with Kevin as the two would slowly form a brotherly friendship. So you know I like the show, and that I have fond memories of it. And boom, they had a game, let's talk about it! Ben, Gwen, and Kevin have to locate a piece of unidentified alien technology. On their way, they meet a Tetraman named Gorvin, who's after the same thing. He claims that the DN aliens and Hybrid are after it as well, and so are the Forever Knights. So they work together to retrieve the pieces of this device and keep it safe from the wrong hands. The story isn't really much to write home about. If anything, it just feels like a standard episode of Alien Force, which is both good and bad. It's good because it fits with the show, and there's even evidence to suggest that this game might actually be canon, as Gorvin would later appear in several episodes of Ben 10 Omniverse. But it's bad because it's just not that interesting. In Ben 10 Protector of Earth, the story felt like it could work as a special or a straight-to-TV movie, with how much was packed in it. Familiar faces all working together using Omnitrix crystals to defeat Ben as V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E attempts to swallow the Earth into the null void. It's probably because the original game was made after Season 3, so they had a lot more material to work with. As Ben 10 Alien Force, the game came out only 6 months after the show premiered, so they didn't have as much to go off of. Sure, they probably could have used elements from the original series, making a glimpse into the past where we see where old friends and enemies are now, but I'd be willing to bet they probably weren't allowed to do that as not to interfere with the possible plans the writers had. Considering some old faces would come back to the show anyway, it could have confused audiences as to why the game and the show had 2 different versions of the same character, but that's just my theory. Speaking of the original game, it had a cool cel-shaded art style with thick outlines, flashy attacks, great effects, and weight to almost everything you did, trying not only to recreate the art style of the show, with backgrounds having more detailed textures, but also adapting it into something that works for a video game on the PlayStation 2 or Wii. With the exception of the stiff cutscenes, I'd say the game's visuals have stood the test of time better than most. So how does Ben 10 Alien Force compare?
Wah, wah, wah.
Oh no, that's no good. It's not ugly per se, but much like the story, it's just so standard. The unique art style is gone, as there's no cel-shaded models or thick outlines, as everything just looks so muddy. Attacks don't hold the same weight as they used to, effects are barely present, and overall it's just so boring to look at. It's like when you first get out of bed, and you still got your bedhead hair, you're groggy, tired, and you look like you want to kill the first person you see. But Protector of Earth is after you've cleaned yourself up, had your morning coffee, and are ready to take on the day. But I guess you could also say that about the show's presentation too. Okay, I'll stop. Now is not the time or place for that. Now it's time for the gameplay. It takes most of its inspiration from the first game, as both are 3D action titles with beat-em-up elements and unlockable moves. For those who are unfamiliar with Ben 10 Protector of Earth, allow me to explain how this game works. You start off as Ben, as you choose between one of 5 transformations. At the beginning of the game, you only have Swamp Fire and Big Chill, but as you progress, you unlock Spider Monkey, Jetray, and Humongosaur! God, I love how each transformation in Alien Force announces themselves. I don't know, it's like in a shonen anime where a character says the name of their attack as they're using it. Each alien has their own abilities, attacks, and combos, and you'll have to use each one to not only face off against enemies, but to also solve puzzles. However, you can only be an alien for so long before the Omnitrix times you out, and you have to wait for it to recharge. Unfortunately, no, you do not unlock master control in this game, so that's something you'll have to deal with throughout the entire thing, minus the last level, which I'll go over later. As you beat enemies, you get experience to unlock button combinations attached to powerful flashy moves, though they aren't as flashy as the original game, and one big problem is that you'll unlock every single move long before the game is over. Heck, you might even get every other alien's combo attacks before unlocking Humongosaur. This is disappointing because in the original game, you wouldn't have unlocked every single combo attack unless you returned to earlier levels to grind. That meant that before beating the game, there was still so much to do besides looking for the 3 Sumo Slammer cards in each level. But while those cards do return in this game, there isn't much of a reason to go back to earlier levels besides that. Well, are the moves at least so broken and overpowered that they become a blast to use? Like basically half of Cannonbolt's moves in the first game? Not really. There's Big Tail's Ice Breath that freezes enemies for a certain period of time. This move is completely broken because you'd think that bosses wouldn't be affected the same way as enemies would be, but no. Many bosses like Volcanus and Kevin can be frozen for just as long as enemies, and if you time your next Ice Breath right, you can keep them still throughout the entire fight. So there's at least one overpowered move, but I would argue that it's not as fun. At least with Cannonbolt's moveset, enemies and bosses can still fight back, but here not so much, so you go from feeling like an overpowered boss character to just winning every fight. Look, if I'm going to completely destroy these bosses, to shatter their rib cages, causing internal bleeding, I would at least like them to still have somewhat of a chance to beat me. That's sad, but at least they tried to make up for it by adding 2 new playable characters, Kevin and Gwen. Kevin can absorb matter, but only at these specific points for some reason, as he covers his entire body in said element. Gwen has martial arts and her mana powers, but besides that, they don't really play all that differently from Ben or any of his aliens. Such a shame because there's so much you could do with these two, but they're only utilized for about 2 levels each. Now I know a lot of people may not like me comparing this game to the original. I'm not saying that it's bad because it's different. It's bad because of the specific decisions made. They could have done something entirely new, and it could have come out great. Being different or change are not inherently good or bad things. They're a variable that could go either way depending on how they're handled. Change is good, and it's great to move on to try something new, but that doesn't mean we should just blindly embrace everything that is new. It's like the people who complain about those who say they want new IPs when a movie that is a new IP doesn't do well. Yeah, we want new IPs, but it doesn't mean we're just going to blindly show anything that is new. We want new stuff, but we also want good stuff. We should not be expected to slam down our wallets on every release of a new IP just to validate our opinions. Also, have you not considered that maybe the people you talk to online about entertainment only take up a small percentage of the actual audience? You'll find that the mainstream that will gladly consume every reboot they find greatly eclipses losers on the internet who obsess over media like me. In other words, shut up! Guardia Room. Also, when talking about a sequel or a new installment to a series, these comparisons are necessary because of what you're following up. The game just feels like a typical licensed game. It's just there. While the original game was fantastic, I would argue it was one of the better licensed games of the era that didn't feel like a licensed game. This one is just that. It's so okay and serviceable, and I think I might know why. Many people claim that the original series was made to sell toys. This isn't true, as Ben 10 Classic didn't get toys or video games until later in its life. As the series debuted in December 2005, its first wave of toys didn't come out until 2006. Many people make this claim as an attempt to defend the reboot. Look, before anyone assumes it, I don't hate the reboot. I think it's a fine show that I wouldn't mind going into more detail with in the future, but just because you want to defend something that you like doesn't give you the right to spread misinformation. The reboot was made to sell toys, and it was directly influenced by its toy manufacturer, Playmates, which is why Wildvine and Stinkfly's new designs are the way they are. Ben 10 Alien Force's first wave of toys came out the same year as the series debuted, but what about the games? Ben 10 Protector of Earth came out in 2007, as Ben 10 Alien Force the game came out only 6 months after the series debuted in 2008. Licensed games usually have shorter development cycles than most standard releases, but it's still more likely that the game started development before the series released. Then we go over the lack of a tagline. Most licensed games based on cartoons or TV shows have an additional title. Fairly Odd Parents, Shadow Showdown, Ben 10, Protector of Earth, The Simpsons, Hit and Run. Of course, there are the occasional outlier like Shaolin Showdown and The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, but that's typically how it goes. This is usually because while it's the overall goal of a licensed game to help advertise what they're based on, these games are still typically made with the show still going, so they can experiment more with the story and do something unique. In other words, it's another adventure that either does or could exist within their already established universe. Of course, this still depends on what is considered canon or not. While movie tie-ins usually have to recreate the story that's being told, or if they do a different story, it has to play it safe as not to confuse the audience. This is also why many movie tie-ins don't have a tagline or an extended title, because if kids playing the game want to see the movie that's about to come out, then they won't get confused when trying to find it online or purchase movie tickets. Madagascar, Shrek 2, Over the Hedge, you get my point. Not only this, but most of these games either have to come out before the movie does, or at the very least, while it's still in theaters. Ben 10 Alien Force the game fits all of those qualities. It only came 6 months after the show premiered, and has no additional title or tagline, and its story plays it safe. It's a cartoon game that got the same treatment as a movie tie-in. Yeah, both of these games are used to advertise the show they're based on, but one is at least fun, and it doesn't feel like a typical license game, while the other isn't even trying to hide what it is. Ben 10 Alien Force is still a great show, however this game is not. But maybe the final level can change that. I did say that while there is no master control, that the last stage doesn't obey the Omnitrix's limiter. And in this stage, you turn into Humongosaur and grow into your biggest size, stomping on waves of DNA aliens and destroying their weather machines, and probably the most frustrating platforming stage this series has ever offered. All for an anticlimactic non-ending that just says, go watch the show, you numbnuts. The Omnitrix is starting to look more like a normal watch, because I can see that I just wasted my fucking time.
You're watching Scooby-Doo on Cartoon Network.
Now, it's a remaster of the Scooby-Doo and the Phantom Virus review. Next, it's a review of Kids Next Door, Operation Video Game. Later, it's 4 Steven Universe Flash games. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Oh, it's a rerun!
Cyberspace, the final frontier.
Cyberspace?
Who would be brave enough to go there and come back? The chase is on with Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. An all-new movie only on video cassette and DVD.
Scooby-Doo is a franchise that has a ton of straight-to-video movies. Ever since the 90s, it feels like a new film comes out on VHS or DVD or Blu-ray almost every 2 to 3 years. Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, Aloha Scooby-Doo, and Scooby-Doo WrestleMania Mystery are just a few to name. Wait, why is Scooby just looking at the air? Anyway, most of these movies are met with mixed results. Some are good, some are bad, some are okay, while others are forgettable. But one polarizing film is 2001's Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase. I either hear people love this movie to death or hate it with a burning passion. I rarely ever hear people in between. As for me, I liked it when I was a kid, but since I don't own a physical copy, nor does it seem to be available on any of the streaming services I use, I can't say for sure. Hey, it's better than just copying some YouTuber reviewer's opinion word for word like it's the gospel. Get your own opinions. The gang visits State University. Yup, that's the name. What, would you rather go to a nice hotel or stocked supermarket? I don't see the problem here. There, they visit their friend Eric, who's making a video game based on their adventures, but then they get attacked by a creature known as the Phantom Virus, and Scooby and his friends get sucked into said game by a laser also invented by Eric. The gang must travel through each level by collecting boxes of Scooby snacks, while finding out a way to defeat the Phantom Virus and just who created him in the first place. But what we're talking about isn't the movie, but instead the tie-in PS1 title of the same name. Much like the film it's based on, the game also has some polarizing reception. Some hate it, while others see it as a hidden gem on the PS1's lineup. Unlike the movie, where my experience is so far exclusive to my childhood, I am able to play this game today as I own a physical copy. Little kid me liked this game, let's see how I feel as a cynical adult. The story is an extremely simplified version of the movie's plot. There is no university, no Eric, no professor, and we don't find out who made the Phantom Virus either. There's only 2 cutscenes as well, an intro and an ending. The gang is getting a video game made about them. The story is pretty much as simple as this. The gang is getting a video game made about them. The Phantom Virus attacks, and Fred makes a plan. Alright gang, Scooby, Shaggy, you go into the game and risk your lives to corner this deadly entity we just met. Velma, you stand there and just keep looking pretty, while Daphne and I will go fuck in the mystery machine, find a trap to deal with this pesky Phantom Virus. And risk our lives for the pleasure of others we shall. You play as Scooby and Shaggy as you travel through 7 themed worlds, finding boxes of Scooby snacks just like the film, fighting bosses, and trying to corner the Phantom Virus. Can I just say, I love this warp room? I'm a sucker for digital worlds, and that rotating core in the center is all I really need. And that soundtrack is an absolute vibe too. You don't get to choose which character you play as each level is assigned to either of the two. But that's okay, because they basically play the same. They can run, jump, double jump, ground pound, crawl, which is only really utilized once, and you can throw pies. Hold the square button to charge up your throw, but don't charge it for too long or they'll get tired. In every level you collect Scooby snacks. If you collect them consecutively, a multiplier will show, adding more to your points. There's also pies to refill ammo, hamburgers for health, the Scooby symbol as a checkpoint, and medals for extra lives. Each world has a different theme, many of which seem to be references to the film. You've got a prehistoric world, feudal Japan, and you even get to go to the back rooms.
This office building is pretty creepy, and I'm picking up some strong surveillance signals. You'll have to be super careful while moving through these halls.
I don't like the sound of that.
Most of the enemies are easy to deal with. Most of the time, the fast ones are stuck on a repeating path and are treated as moving obstacles, while the ones that aren't restricted to a set path will chase you, but they are slow. Some are completely stationary, like these break dancers that are cursed to keep dancing.
If they ever think about stopping their sick moves, then their heart will also cease. It's better to put them out of the misery.
Or just let them go, I don't know, this is pretty fun watching them just spin around. The game's alright, but the biggest problem is how Scooby and Shaggy control. They're both pretty slow, and it honestly just feels like all they'd really need to do is increase their speed by 1 or 2 values. I'm starting to think that maybe they were a little faster in an earlier version. Many of the bosses have attacks that you can barely dodge. Maybe they were originally faster, but they thought the game could be beaten too quickly, so they slowed them down to give the impression that the game is longer than what it actually is, but they didn't adjust the bosses to fit the slower speed. Or not. I don't know. Their jumps also feel inconsistent. Sometimes you have little to no momentum in the air, while other times you get sent flying over the platform you wanted to land on. It's frustrating because honestly I feel like all they had to do was fix the jumping and make you a bit faster, and that would make a big difference. It wouldn't make this game a masterpiece, but going from an okay game to an enjoyable one is still an improvement. The sledding level in the Arctic world can eat a dick though. I appreciate the variety, but it's so easy to fall off the edge, especially at the final stretch where you're supposed to go down this extremely narrow path. I've had to retry this section multiple times before getting it right. The bosses for the most part are pretty easy. Once you understand their patterns, it's just a matter of waiting for your chance to hit them. But some of these bosses have attacks that feel like you can just barely dodge, like this lion and the polar bear. Oh, by the way, look out for this cheap moment after you beat the lion. Yep, you can still get killed after beating the boss, as these gladiators throw one more set of spears after doing so. What a dick move. Most of the bosses are either references to the movie or are completely original, except for the city level boss, which is Charlie the Robot. He's the only pre-existing Scooby-Doo villain to make an appearance in this game. In the movie, there was a part where the Phantom Virus brings in past monsters to Gangface to chase them around. But Charlie is not one of them. He makes no appearance in the movie, which makes him being the only pre-existing villain to be in the game even weirder. Maybe the boss was supposed to reference an early appearance of the villain. Maybe he was supposed to be inside the film and they cut him out last minute. I don't know. But the real pain is the final boss, the Phantom Virus himself. Listen, if you want to beat this guy, then listen carefully. Do not get hit in the first 2 phases, not even once, which is easier said than done because the first phase has them split into 3, rotate around the stage as they try to charge you. These guys are way too fast, and even if it seems like you've dodged them successfully, you'll still get hit for whatever reason. Maybe his hitbox is bigger than his model? I don't know. The second phase is easy, he just brings down some avoidable lightning strikes, but the last phase is the reason why you cannot get hit until now. He grows twice his size and tries to poke you. But goddamn, this attack is almost impossible to avoid. He'll get right up to you and immediately strike, and because you're too slow, you almost always get hit. Scooby's gonna know what it feels like to get a prostate exam from a jumper cable. At least you'll have invincibility frames after getting damaged, so the next hit goes right through you. He'll try to poke you 5 times, but only 3 will land because he'll go for the next hit before your invincibility frames run out. But if you have at least 3 hits when you get to this phase, just pray to whatever god you believe in that he'll miss. Believe it or not, it is possible for this attack to miss, but it's completely random as to when or even how. But take that chance when it comes, because if you miss your pie throw when your chance comes, he'll repeat the phase and you are not surviving at the second time. Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase is a frustrating case because while it isn't a bad game, it feels like with some minor adjustments, it could at least be a good game. Just make Scooby and Shaggy a tiny bit faster, fix the jumping, and fix the sledding level, and that's all you really need to do. Honestly, just speeding up the 2 could fix some of the cheaper bosses, especially the Phantom Virus, and you wouldn't even have to change the bosses themselves. But I wouldn't say it's a bad game either. It just takes an hour to beat, so it doesn't overstay its welcome. If it was longer, then maybe some of the issues would be even more glaring. It's short and sweet. Not sweet enough to make up the difference, but not borderline sour. It's a short, okay game that has some good moments, but it could obviously be better.
Look, Raggy, yummy snacks. Oh boy. They look good to me too, pal. Yaha! Man, I knew I could do it.
Now, back to Cartoon Network's NBA All-Star Slam.
As you can clearly see, LeBron James, we are an unstoppable defensive tower of power.
Go ahead and drive to the hole. We dare ya!
My lower half is numb. Now, Mr. NBA Superstar, do your worst. Wait! The Tower of Power wasn't ready yet. LeBron, where are you going? Do over!
Get back here, you rookie!
Now, it's a review of Kids Next Door, Operation Video Game. Next, it's 4 Steven Universe Flash games. Later, it's a review of Generator X, Agent of Providence. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
It's the codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game. Play as your favorite operative, collect cool weapons, and take on villains like Nightbrace and the Toiletnator. Look for the codename Kids Next Door Operation Video Game in stores. Rated everyone 10 and up.
One of Cartoon Network's biggest shows during the 2000s was Codename Kids Next Door, created by Thomas Warburton, better known as Mr. Warburton, and released in 2002. The series was about an organization of kids that would fight against adult tyranny inside their massive tree houses while using their 2x4 technology made with rubber bands, styrofoam cups, and chewed up bubblegum. Our main characters, numbers 1 through 5, reside in the Sector V treehouse. They fight against villains based on general fears or distaste of children. Nightbrace is a dentist that tries to forcefully brush kids' teeth using cruel methods. Count Spankula is a vampire that breaks into people's houses and spanks naughty children. Grandma Stuff'em, who wants to force-feed children until they're too fat to cause trouble, and has probably caused the most real-world damage. As kids would watch an episode featuring her, and their wires would cross at the wrong time, thus turning them into chubby chasers for life. Oh, trust me, there are probably dozens of cartoons throughout history that have unintentionally caused people to develop strange kinks. What have you done to me? But what made KND stand out? I think it's the creativity. You would think that making an action cartoon that uses kids as a theme wouldn't lead to many options. Kids aren't a very specific theme after all, they're a demographic, but they did a lot with it. And they were pretty clever with the ideas they had. One example I can think of is the Six Gum Gang, more specifically their guns. Now, in most cartoons you can't use realistic guns, so they replaced them with lasers instead, but here they use chewed up bubblegum. That doesn't sound too interesting on its own until you really think about it. Two cliches within Western films are the sharpshooter and when the main character spits out chewing tobacco as it hits something in the distance to show how good they are at aiming. Now imagine we mix both of these cliches together and have them spit their tobacco into the gun as ammo, but since this is a kids show, we replace it with chewed up bubblegum. This is what I mean by the show being creative. It managed to mix two cliches together and change it enough to still work within its universe and theme. Sure, sometimes they'll do a basic idea like bullies being portrayed as dinosaurs, but for every easy idea, there's a clever one right around the corner. And that's all you really need for kids, something to get their imagination going. Why do you think so many kids love Pokemon or Ben 10? It's enough to get their minds rolling with ideas as what could exist in this universe. I'd love to talk about the show more, but it's time we get to the real topic at hand. Kids Next Door, Operation Video Game.
Let's see what you think of this.
Number 86 sends them a message informing them that several villains have escaped the prison in the Arctic base, and it's up to number 1 and his team to recapture them and send them to the moon base. To be honest, the story is the worst part of the game for me. It's just so basic. I'm not expecting anything groundbreaking for a licensed game, but it's just so by the books. Personally, what I would have done is made the game like titles such as Rugrats Search for Reptar, or Fairly Odd Parents Breaking the Rules. Using the Sector V treehouse as a hub, you go to different objects that will act as a mission. The more missions you complete, the more the treehouse opens up. This would mean that every level can be treated as its own story, perhaps taking inspiration from specific episodes, while leading towards a bigger confrontation. Instead, you go through each level as different operatives, as they must hunt down every villain that has escaped. For platforming stages, you play as operatives number 1, 3, 4, and 5. One thing I do like is how none of the operatives play the exact same. Number 1 only uses ranged weapons and has a grappling shot. Number 3 can glide in the air, number 4 is exclusively a physical fighter, and number 5 can double jump and wall jump. But what about number 2? Well, you don't play as him in any platforming stages, but you do play as him in these shoot-em-up stages while flying the cool bus, flying around, shooting enemies, and using your shield to absorb projectiles, and using that energy to perform a screen wipe, which, I'll admit, is pretty satisfying to do. Of course, you have things to collect throughout each level. The first are 2x4 technology pieces, used to unlock new weaponry that can be used to make that level easier. Most of the time, the weapon in question is not required to beat the stage, but you'll want to find them anyway as they make certain challenges less obnoxious. For example, in the level Spankerific, you start off with the Gumzooka, which is fine, but if you really want to beat these spank-happy vampires, then you'll get the pieces needed to get the Scamp. It's a lot more powerful, and the charge shot is almost always guaranteed to take down enemies in one go. Hey look, they even do that thing in the show where the computer describes the weapon and what the abbreviation means.
Kids Next Door Scam, Soup Can, and Magnified Photon Phaser.
The other collectible is
Rainbow monkeys, also very round and super chunky. Bring love wherever they go. Everyone's made of a big rainbow. A red and orange and pink and blue. Rainbow monkeys, we love you!
Seriously, why did Cartoon Network never capitalize on these things? You would think they would have made real Rainbow Monkey plushies, but they never did. Instead, we got trading cards that don't even use original art, and instead use screenshots from the show. They didn't even make trading cards based on the in-show trading card game, Yipper cards. That's the stuff that kids like. They want to play with the same toys and games shown off in their shows, like Sumo Slammers from Ben 10 or Crimson Chin from Fairly Odd Parents. You can't tell me that making stuffed animals would have been hard or expensive, especially since they could have easily made a collaboration with Build-A-Bear Workshop. Unless they were Ben 10 or Powerpuff Girls, most Cartoon Network shows got the short end of the stick when it came to merchandise opportunities and toy lines.
Oh no, we couldn't think of any ideas and merch for Kids Next Door.
A show filled with characters and villains that would make great action figures, 2x4 technology that could work as Nerf guns or foam bats for kids to knock their block off with, Yipper trading cards and rainbow monkeys that would be the easiest and probably lucrative to produce. No, instead you'll get some figures, trading cards that use screenshots from the show, and vending machine small figures that aren't even scaled properly with the other characters. Seriously, why is number 2 half the size of number 3? But hey, at least they're here in the game. Collecting enough in each stage unlocks content within the top secret page. This is where you can unlock cheats, concept art, and yes, images of those same trading cards, and a video explaining how the card game works. There's other stuff in this page worth checking out, but I'll go over that later. I actually have a quick story before we continue. Earlier I mentioned the level Spankerific. I never beat this game, not because it was hard by all means. There were some moments that gave me some difficulties as a child, but nothing too difficult. You see, while I was playing the game, my mom called me as we were going somewhere. Without thinking, I turned off the PlayStation 2. Usually they give you a warning not to do this if you're saving, so I thought that turning the game off while it was loading would be fine, but the next time I played the game, it had told me that the save was corrupted. As an impatient kid, I didn't feel like playing through all that again, so I turned off the console and hadn't played the game again until almost 20 years later. It was an important lesson to me not just shut off a console carelessly, a lesson I'll surely never forget. But that's pretty much all there is. Fight enemies, occasional platforming, fighting a boss, a shoot 'em up stage, yada yada yada. That's the problem with the game. It's your typical licensed game of the era. 3D action game starring famous character. The best way to describe these games would be Video Game the Game starring a licensed character. Just run from point A to point B, occasionally fighting enemies and performing basic platforming challenges. Rarely ever changing the gameplay, minus the cliches you've seen 1,000 times before, such as your obligatory stealth level, going around flipping switches, or navigating through a maze. And because of that, there really isn't that much to talk about. Father's in the game, and he's treated as the main villain pulling the strings, but you never fight him. Same goes for Kree, who also plays an important role in the story. Oh yeah! The tutorial stage isn't the only time you face off against the Toilinator, as later in the game he comes back with his own henchmen. There are toilet paper mummies, which are pretty alright in design, but the minion that I wanted to talk about is the Behemoth. Yes, there is an entire enemy in the game that's just walking feces, and he only appears in this one room. I didn't even know this was allowed. What a shithead. No, seriously, he has dreadlocks made of turds. This guy's literally a shithead, and he walks around like he owns the damn place. Honestly, would you stop him? If this thing walked into my house, I would just leave. It's his house now, and I'd be trespassing at that point. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a criminal, and I'm not dealing with this shit. Now, I could milk the fact that this is just an okay game, until the video is long enough to get more ads like most YouTubers do. Because apparently if something is just okay, we've got to constantly reiterate how okay it is for 10 minutes or more, resulting in the same video becoming just as okay, if not worse than the product they were dunking on, followed by some weird sponsorship that has nothing to do with the channel's theme. Speaking of which, Raid Shadow Legends! Huh? Gotcha, didn't I? I might not have a brain, but I have this thing called a soul. Instead, I'll use this as an opportunity to do something a little different. Even though this is just a typical license game from the era, there were some things that did surprise me, and some things that were worth some praise. So, here are the top 5 things that surprised me about Kids Next Door, Operation Video Game. Number 5. I already mentioned how each character slightly plays differently. Now that's pretty standard, but what I really like is how every character is expressive. Each operative has their own unique animations that show off their personality. Even just climbing up a ledge is different, from number 4 being more aggressive, and number 3 doing a twirl. Speaking of number 3, she's probably the character that has the most visual personality in the game. Her idle animation has her dancing in place, and her walking animation has her hands up in excitement. It's all so cute, but if you saw this running at you in the middle of the night, you'd probably be terrified.
Come here, you little hamsters. Let me love you. Let me love you.
Number 4. This one features some spoilers. Spoilers for nearly 20-year-old licensed games, but spoilers nonetheless.
Did you know it was never real to begin with?
The final boss of the game has the main villains fused together to form the Amalgamation, a kaiju-sized hybrid of Count Spankulot, Nightbrace, Stickybeard, Common Cold, Grandma Stuff'em, and the Toilinator. To fend off this monstrous hybrid, you control the moon base, which has now become a giant mech. That is actually really cool. For one, they never did this in the show, so it's completely unexpected. And 2, you can't tell me that kids didn't love this. Kids love mindless destruction and seeing giant robots fight against massive monsters. I mean, really? Who doesn't? Minus those pretentious prudes that think that everything has to be deep to be considered good. This is a great final fight, and it wasn't a cakewalk either. Number 3. These type of games will try to hold your hand, often stopping the action to slowly pan the camera over to the next objective. And yes, this game is guilty of that too. But when it's not doing that, it feels like it's teaching kids the basics of video games. What do I mean by that? Well, there's a super move in the game. Once this meter is filled, you can press a button to activate the super attack that hits everything around you. There are times when enemies will spawn in all directions. If you try to attack them normally, you're bound to get hit. But if you use your super, you'll push them away. To most adults and experienced players, they'll know exactly what to do. Kids might have a harder time, but they'll learn this lesson without the game needing to stop to tell them directly, teaching them to recognize enemy patterns to know what the best course of action is. Another example would be the Cool Bus stages. Sometimes you'll be bombarded by enemies. This might look like bad design, but remember, you have a shield that absorbs your enemy shots that fuels a screen wipe. When these projectiles are coming in all directions and there are too many guys to count, a kid may learn to utilize their other tools rather than just pressing one button. This game made me realize that this is what licensed games should have done. Help kids learn the basics of video games without completely holding their hand, using famous characters to introduce them to a new medium they might love. And with the lessons they learned, they can tackle original IPs like Ratchet & Clank or Sly Cooper. Number 2. Remember that top secret section I mentioned earlier? One really cool thing about it is that you can actually play as any enemy and boss through this page. There are simulation rooms that let you take full control of any enemy you've encountered, moving around and testing their abilities. That's really cool. Not only does this give you an idea as to how these enemies work, but it can also give some tips on game development and designing enemies and bosses. Some things I learned throughout the simulation is that the vampire wannabe shoots bats out of his urethra. Gross! Using Stickybeard's X attack allowed me to find out that if you die as an enemy, it just switches you to the next despite them not actually dying. Enemies will perform their dying animation, but they'll just get right back up. Maybe it's a glitch or even a safe precaution done in case an enemy really does die in that room for whatever reason. I don't know. And lastly, number 1. And this brings us to the Wolf Code with Velvet. It's cool that you get to play as any enemy in this simulation room, but wouldn't it be cooler to control them in the main game? Well, I got good news for you. Once you beat the game and get 40 rainbow monkeys on the credit stage, you unlock Possession Mode. Now go into any level and lock onto an enemy and press the right button and they'll be under your control. The only difference here is that you can actually give and receive damage from enemies. If you die as an enemy, you'll return unharmed. The only downside is that you can't perform important objectives, such as saving these kids from the Spancampy vampires, but you can easily leave and kill the enemy by holding the right button. While this game is pretty standard in execution, it did some things that surprised me, things that I think do deserve some praise. It may not be the best licensed game, nor the worst, but I think it's worth looking into for some of the things it does right. Now, it's 4 Steven Universe Flash games. Next, it's a review of Generator X, Agent of Providence. Later, it's 5 regular show Flash games. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
So the crystal gems found a magic prism, and I sorta unleashed a huge monster. Now we've got to find all the light creatures. Go, Garnet, go! Attack the light! Woohoo!
The internet is really good at making things seem way worse than what they really are. Usually when I see a cartoon YouTuber talk about an Illumination movie or something of the like, they always make it seem like it's the biggest insult to film, when really they're just fine. No masterpieces, but nowhere near as bad as the funny YouTube man-children will ever make them out to be. But I guess getting views from the typical blank is garbage and here is why, or I watched blank so you don't have to, is far more important than being genuine and honest to your audience as a self-proclaimed reviewer. You all totally missed a point that the Angry Video Game Nerd is a parody of nerds who take video games too seriously, and James Rolfe isn't actually that mad.
Ass! Fuck!
This brings us to Steven Universe, created by Rebecca Sugar, a show about Steven, a boy that's a hybrid between a human and a gem. Gem are sentient space rocks that can create physical forms to interact with others or fight, and they're all usually very gay. LGBT representation is a lot more commonplace and accepted now, but over a decade ago was a different story. Gay characters would either have to make very minor appearances, or be walking stereotypes and be written as a joke to be approved by networks, or at the very least, just have them only implied to be gay, like the cat and the rabbit from that one Courage episode. But we all knew what was up. I understood the metaphorical. I'm assuming that Rebecca was able to argue that they're rocks and not human women, which is why they were able to do so much. But you can only challenge a corporate studio so much. Let's not pretend that Cartoon Network was completely supportive of the Crooniverse. But still, the impact was made. I genuinely believe that Steven Universe helped to normalize LGBT representation in media. Would the characters we see in later shows still be able to be as open as they were if Steven Universe never existed? Maybe, but you can't deny the impact that the show made, and minus some issues that the schedules or the studio presented, and maybe some minor flaws the crew may have overlooked, Steven Universe was a great show. Future is a little more debatable. Sorry, I just didn't like it, but that's a discussion for another day, maybe. Steven Universe came out in 2013. This is when Flash was slowly getting less support due to the rise of the App Store, so a lot of the shows that came out during the 2010s weren't able to get as many Flash games as cartoons during the 90s or the 2000s, but here's just 4 I could find. Heap of Trouble, what the fuck is that? Steven is apparently a hoarder as he has too much stuff, so it's time to pack it all away. As someone who's currently in the process of unpacking and putting some stuff into storage, I can understand why Steven looks in distress here. What do I do? No. This is a puzzle game where you must grab the following objects and place them in the box. Put as many objects in as you can, match them to get some extra points, and use power-ups to help you on your way. Close the box when it's full as Pearl judges your performance, and start a new one. This game relies a lot on physics, and that's because the game isn't made on Flash, but rather Unity. When Flash was starting to die out, it seemed like Cartoon Network decided to use Unity for a lot of their games. I've heard that many studios were preparing for Flash's downfall during the 2010s, hence why near the end of the era, most of their games made in Flash were taken off the site. Keep in mind, this was before the Flash player was shut down in late 2020. It's a pretty standard puzzle game. I had more fun just tossing the objects around than placing them. The physics can screw you over from time to time, but overall, not a bad game. Goat Guardian. You remember the episode about Steven, Pearl, and Amethyst climbing a massive mountain in the sky as Steven begs for them to fuse into Opal because all he wants to do is see you turn into a giant woman? Having a game centered around Opal and shooting arrows sounds fun. Let's make it about the goat instead. Goat Guardian is a puzzle platformer where you must guide Steven across the stage to reach Steven Jr., Super Meat Boy for the gays. Every time you step off a platform, it disappears, making the journey a bit more difficult. Sometimes you have to wake Steven Jr. up, so you have to get the pieces to form a golden apple for him to eat. Each level also has the 3 gems that represent Garnet, Amethyst, and Pearl. They aren't required to beat the stage, they're simply there for completionists. Sometimes you might have to deal with the bird monster that used to be a sentient being that was horribly mutated by war commentary.
Are you one of those people that think that everything is political?
Nah, I just think that commentary is neat. It's strange that they decided to make a game about this rather than Opal. Heck, it's weird that many of these games have nothing to do with the gems or their powers, but this is still a pretty alright platformer nonetheless. Spike Squad! Beach City always seemed like a fun place to live. You've got a full beach, amusement park on a boardwalk, friendly people, and nightmarish creatures attacking every week. Or several months, depending on when Cartoon Network wanted to release the episodes. You remember that? When it would seem like we would have to wait forever for a new episode to release. Not because of any production issues, it just seemed like CN was holding the episodes hostage for whatever reason. And considering this was the point in time when these kind of schedules were active, damn, makes me think that was because it was the era the studio tried to be like Nickelodeon and rely on their one breadwinner and screw the rest. Thankfully, the era seems to be past us, but it's still worth remembering. Anyway, Spike Squad is a volleyball game. You can play alone with an AI-controlled ally, or have a second player join you instead. When you start the game, you only have 4 characters to play with. These are Garnet, Steven, Amethyst, and Pearl. But there are 4 other characters you can unlock who seem to be Lapis, Peridot, that Pearl robot replica thingy, and Jasper. You use the arrows to move and C and X to serve and pass the ball. Seems fine enough, but it feels so... how do I put this? Off. Sometimes I press the pass and the ball goes right through me, even though I'm standing right under it, but the opponent is able to pass it despite it being farther away from them. Is it a weird timing thing? Am I doing it wrong? Look man, I'm able to admit when I'm wrong.
That's because he usually is so much that there's no point in denying it anymore.
That's until I became a cynical adult and realized I was right on most things all along, but I'll save that for my therapist. So you know what? I'll say it. It can't be me because I can't get past the first match. Though this game still visually looks good, and I don't mind losing because someone had a lot of fun drawing Garnet here. Damn, girl. Nice mass. Sword Dancers. You play as Connie while sword training. You go in several one-on-one fights against different enemies. You attack with X, but every once in a while you have to change your stance by pressing Z, or alternatively, you can use the up and down arrows instead. Honestly, this game is a lot more challenging than it seems. Every enemy is just as strong as you are, and each one will need to be handled with caution. Time your attacks right and know when to switch stances. One thing the game doesn't tell you is that you also have a dodge. Double tap either left or right to quickly move in that direction. This is way more helpful than you think. Dark Souls, for the gays! One thing I wish they had was some way to counter attacks. Some enemies, especially the Connie replica, have just as fast attacks as you. Timing attacks is one thing, but sometimes it feels like there's very little you can do to defend yourself, though I could be missing something. I have to say that this game is probably one of the best looking Steven Universe Flash games. It no doubt rivals Spike Squad in presentation. This game seems like a really fun one to master, but maybe not a fun one to play casual. Usually I try to do 5 games per theme with these flashbacks, but as Steven Universe came in 2013 and Cartoon Network was preparing for the death of Flash, this series doesn't really have as much as others do. Not only this, but some games on the Flashpoint player sometimes have a hard time loading, whether that be with Unity or Shockwave. It's a bit more of a gamble when it comes to that. Maybe there's a newer version of Flashpoint that fixes these issues? I'm not sure, so sorry that this episode will have to be a bit shorter than the rest. Next time, I'll avoid post-2010s properties for the series. Besides, this is a 2000s nostalgia channel anyway. Get out here, you little scamp! Leave! Now, it's a review of Generator X, Agent of Providence. Next, it's 5 regular show Flash games. Later, it's a review of Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
Oh yeah, it's Generator Rex. Oh yes, this show rocks!
From Man of Action, who also brought you the Ben 10 franchise. A big ol' whammy kablammy causes nanites to spread across the globe and infect the human race. They lay dormant inside one's body until they randomly activate, turning them into horrifying monsters called EVOs. An organization called Providence faces off against EVOs. While they have powerful forces like Agent 6 on their side, they often send in their secret weapon, Rex Salazar, a teenage boy who's one of the few able to control his nanites, thus turning his body into mechanical weapons to weaken the EVOs and use his powers to cure them. Possibly. Sometimes you're just fucked and you're stuck as a giant rabbit monster or some other ungodly abomination. Generator Rex was a great show, but man, did it get forgotten quick. You'd think it would have been a hit considering that not only was it made by the same production company as Ben 10, but it also premiered the same day as Ben 10 Ultimate Alien. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, Generator Rex debuted right after Ultimate Alien, so that meant that any kid excitedly waiting to watch the next Ben 10 would see Generator Rex debut as well. But unfortunately, the show would often be overshadowed by its older brother, as it came during a point in time when action cartoons weren't doing as well. Action shows always had bad luck, but the early 2010s was especially bad. Symbionic Titan, Motor City, and Tron Uprising would all suffer during this era. Generator Rex only lasted 2 years, as its finale was dumped on PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Zune, and iTunes? And it didn't broadcast on TV in the US until almost a year later? On a Thursday? Oh well, at least it was able to make a comeback in the form of a special for the Ben 10 reboot and a 1-second cameo in the OKKO special crossover Nexus. That's, kind of it, I think. But at the time, it seemed like Cartoon Network had high hopes for the show, because they were willing to let it get a video game. That brings us to 2011's Generator Rex, Agent of Providence.
Let's get this party started and tear something up.
Rex is out fighting and curing EVOs when he finds a strange blueprint which gets stolen by Breach, a humanoid EVO that's able to open portals. Rex also loses some of his builds in the process. These blueprint pieces are being collected by the primary antagonist of the series, Van Kleiss, so he can create his own Omega-1 nanite. Rex already has one inside of him. This nanite allows Rex to create powerful Omega builds, which I'll go over later, but Van Kleiss is more interested in its self-replicating properties. Rex and Providence must retrieve the blueprint pieces before Van Kleiss has the information to recreate it. The story isn't too special, but it at least fits in line with the show, and with Rex facing old threats and going to familiar places, it feels like more than just another episode of the show. It's more like a two-part special. Visually, the game is serviceable for an early 2010s Xbox 360 and PS3 title. The only part that looks bad are the cutscenes. The characters move so wildly, it almost reminds me of Scary Godmother. You know, that old 3D animated Halloween movie based on a book of the same name that would air on Cartoon Network almost every year in the 2000s? Same goes for its sequel, Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, and Olive the Other Reindeer. The game is a 3D beat-em-up styled game where you can switch between any of Rex's builds to fight EVOs and get from one side of the stage to the other, doing so with just a press of a button. Each build has its own purpose. The smack hands hit several enemies around Rex, as the big fat sword mainly focuses on whatever's in front of him. The slam cannon is used for range and sometimes solving puzzles. You can also use some of Rex's Omega builds to do lots of damage. This game does a great job at making attacks feel so satisfying. There's real weight that goes into every hit, and it fills me with joy when I smack the ever-living shit out of a giant monster that used to be someone's dad going to the gas station to get a pack of cigarettes. Well, he wasn't going home anyway. You can collect nanites from fallen enemies. These nanites can be used to upgrade your abilities and make you stronger. The game actually feels pretty good to play. It's not perfect by all means, but oddly enough, it feels more like the proper sequel to Ben 10 Protector of Earth that Alien Force the game should have been. Though I would still argue that Protector of Earth is still better due to the crazy amount of combos you can unlock. Not only this, but while the game tries to present a challenge with all the enemies that spawn, the number of health pickups makes it a little too easy. And unlike Ben's first game, it gets a lot more repetitive simply because there's only so much you can upgrade. but if we count Generator Rex Agent of Providence as a Ben 10 game, then I would still consider it the second best one. But it doesn't get too repetitive, as many levels have sections where the gameplay changes drastically. This is where Rex's movement-based builds come in, such as the Punk Busters, which are used for platforming challenges. God, I love stomping around in these things. It makes me feel like a badass motherfucker or a big mother trucker when Rex uses the Rex Ride. Really? That's what it's called? You couldn't think of any other name for this thing? Rex Ride, that's what you're going with? Not the Zoom Doom Boom Machine? Or even Help I Can't Feel My Legs? Because I feel like those would have been better choices. Rex Ride, really. I wish I could say that the action just keeps going, but unfortunately that's not the case, as there are many moments where Rex will slow to a crawl as he talks to someone in Providence. Why does he slow down like this? I wanna punch a rabbit! Well, back then, game devs used to try and find ways to hide the fact that the game was loading. To give the game enough time to process what's up ahead, they would have these moments where characters would slow down. Sometimes they talk with other characters or themselves about what's going on. But many games back then would also abuse these moments to make the game seem longer than what it actually is, having you walk with a character as a substitute for a cutscene. This way, they can add it up to the total of hours of gameplay, as technically, as bare bones as it is, this is gameplay. This would be fine, but why do so many games insist on having these characters be faster than your walk and slower than your run? You know what I'm talking about. I'll sprint to catch up, but then you have to stop to let them go ahead as I wait to sprint again. Was it really so hard to make these characters the same speed as the player? Why are you the way that you are? Oh well, at least that doesn't happen here. And the bosses are pretty fun too. They put up a good challenge and are genuinely fun to fight, though some of them can be a little more frustrating than others. Most bosses also have a reaction time segment, which was very popular at the time. It was hard to find action games that didn't have reaction segments. After each level, you end up back in Providence. Here you can talk with everyone on the ship. Bobo, Rex's talking chimp companion, always has something new to say with each completed level.
Sorry, that Mushu's coming back on me.
Talking to Agent 6 allows you to replay any level in the game and enter a time trial mode where you must be Agent 6's time. Talking to Professor Holiday, she'll ask you to collect different samples from fallen enemies. In return, she'll willingly go on a date with a minor. This game gives you a lot to do. Agent of Providence is honestly one of the better Cartoon Network games. It's no masterpiece by all means. I mean, of course not. It's a 2011 licensed game. This is the year that Portal 2, Dead Space 2, Batman Arkham Asylum, and several other far better games came out. But for what it is, it's genuinely a pretty good experience. I would absolutely refer to this as an underrated gem. Before we go, I'd like to tell a story. I played this game when it first came out in 2011. I was 15 years old then. But I got stuck on the second level due to this puzzle where you have to use Rex's smack hands to turn pillars to change the image on them. I spent an hour trying to figure out what the combination was. But then I replayed the game last year to get footage of it, and it only took me a few seconds. So what was the solution? Literally the match to icons on the floor. I have no idea why 15-year-old me couldn't figure that one out. But then again, that's only a taste of all the dumb stuff teenager me would do that now keeps me up at night from constant regrets. I sincerely want to punch him in the throat.
Please select your character!
Monkeys! Get out of here.
Now, it's 5 regular show Flash games. Next, it's a review of Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
And now, a regular look at regular show.
What? Oh, you want us to put the hurt on you? I think he wants me to put the hurt on him.
I think he wants you to put the hurt on him.
You think he wants me to put the hurt on him?
Yes, I do.
Regular show. It's anything but. New series premieres Monday, September 6th at 8:15, right after Adventure Time.
Oh!
Only on Cartoon Network.
How do I describe something like regular show? Because really, it's anything but. Created by J.G. Quintel, it's a show about a blue jay named Mordecai and a raccoon named Rigby in their 20s working at a local park.
The day starts off normally as the two are told by their boss Benson to set up some chairs, but then it devolves into hot dog people trying to cook and eat them and their friends. Or how a rock paper scissors game for an old chair almost causes the end of the world. Sure, they could just fill in a single pothole, but I think helping a party horse pass his US history test or the earth will explode is probably more important. Those old ads were accurate because Regular Show really was anything but regular. Mordecai and Rigby also love to play old video games and go to the arcade, so thematically them having video games just works. But they only had one in the form of Regular Show, Mordecai and Rigby in 8-bit land on the 3DS. Minus maybe some appearances and crossovers, that's all we really got. I've heard rumors that Mordecai was supposed to be in Multiverses, but that never ended up happening. Hopefully modders like Multiverses Infinite can change that. But anyway, Flash games are kinda similar to arcade games or the retro games that Mordecai and Rigby would play, as they're usually short and are all about high scores, so maybe Flash games are more suited for them. With that being said, here's 5 Regular Show Flash games. Fist Punch! Night Owl has kidnapped Margaret, and the only way to save her is by using the art of Death Kwon-Do. You can play as either Mordecai or Rigby, or 2 players can be either character, as you must go through 3 levels of enemies and bosses. Mainly guys that punch, guys that shoot, and guys that punch harder. The game is a button masher, but for something that you can beat in less than 15 minutes, it's acceptable. You attack with M, and when this meter is filled, you press N to unleash a wave of powerful attacks to every enemy on screen. If it was just a regular attack, I would call this game boring, but this rush attack is so satisfying to do, especially when you get an over 20 hit combo with it. The game is ridiculously easy, maybe a little too easy. If they got rid of the hot dog health pickups, then maybe this game would be a bit more challenging.
At least it's accurate to your eating habits.
You are correct, my spineless friend. I've got a diet of a 5-year-old and I'm surely not going to make it to my 50s. The only part that I actually died at was the last boss against Night Owl. Not only does he have fast attacks, but he's also got a laser that can do multiple hits and lots of damage. My god, a boss that actually makes me pay attention. May God have mercy on us all. But honestly, there's a reason why this is probably the most talked about Regular Show Flash game. It's a pretty damn good time, honestly. And would you look at that? They saved a babe. The future of Mordecai and Margaret is looking bright. Not a cloud in sight. Or some random bat that they shoved in the finale. Skips in the Zone Workout, a game about one of my favorite characters in the show. You play as Skips during a workout routine by doing some push-ups. The meter on the right indicates your push-up. Click on the green to do a regular push-up, click on the blue to do a jumping push-up, and be sure to click while he's in the air to do a clap for 1,000 points. But don't click on the red or it'll be game over. Though it's not that simple, as when you click, the gauge also shrinks down to the area of the arrow, so it's crucial to click at the highest point. There is this text at the bottom left that says rest, but I'm not sure how. Clicking it does nothing. In fact, I've lost a few times trying to click it. Doing nothing doesn't seem to help either, so I don't know what it wants me to do. Trust me, I'm not the game grumps. I actually read the instructions and pay attention during tutorials. But I also have ADHD, so it's possible that I may have just missed something in this tiny amount of text.
I'd love to see you embarrass yourself on Are You Smarter Than a 5th Grader?
My performance on that show will depend on one thing. Do the other kids have ADHD? Even so, I'd probably still lose, but I'm not leaving without a fight! This game came out after 2010. By this time, Flash games were getting much better. This feels more like a game that was made in the late 90s or the early 2000s, especially in comparison to stuff like Fist Punch. Cupcakes of Doom. The epic Cupcakes of Doom Zords X3. Mordecai and Rigby find a recipe for the ultimate epic bacon pancakes, but when they finish, Tech Guardians arrive and nom all the cupcakes away. Turns out the recipe was left by V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E, who controls Tech Guardians and has to milk of Redemption Zords. With the help of Skips and Fist of Justice, they will go on an epic quest to defeat V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E. And, I'm sorry, I have no idea what came over me.
Man, you really are stuck in the past. This game may be old, but even it came after the era you're referencing.
Look, when you put of Doom at the end of anything, it immediately triggers something in my brain. Invader Zim fans and emos of the 2000s, you feel me, right? Does or does not the title Cupcakes of Doom bring that era back into your mind?
Still, man, you've got to move on.
And what? Say ah instead of ass? Would you rather me say that the skibbity chicken jockey has Ohio Riz with his goofy ah?
No, but now that you mention it, the internet really hasn't changed that much, huh?
Not really, but I will claim it is, as I grew up with one and not the other. In this game, you must ride Skip's shoulders, bearing the fists of justice, fending off against possessed guardians who will attempt to slow you down. Press the spacebar to do what some have only dreamed of doing, whether they admit it or not. Punch a baby. You must chase down V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E, and when you reach him, you must dodge his attacks and strike back until his health is gone. Honestly, this game has a great sense of speed, and it doesn't control half bad either. The environments are in 3D, which was very rare for Flash games, and it only helps to make the game feel faster. I can see a Sonic detractor using this game for a typical "if Sonic was like this" post, or one of those "Frontiers is slow" TikToks that use the unupgraded speed and the bass boost in a cyberspace stage. You also have power-ups that follow ramps you can use to get some air. As you progress, the routes become harder to run on, but you must do it quickly as each stage is timed. This is probably one of the best Cartoon Network Flash games out there. It's fun, has a great sense of speed, and it puts up a great challenge. If they put the right time and money into this, then I could see this working as a full-fledged game. That's hella epic it is. Hey! Sorry.
Random Rigby, I tell you what, I saw the strangest thing the other day. I swear to sweet baby barbecue Jesus, there was a raccoon in a life vest rain his sick drunken man throughout the park. All I can say is, hooey! Looks like Roadkill became the road killer!
Muscle Man is Rigby's mentor for the day. He runs on all fours across the park as Rigby hangs on for dear life. Click to jump, and click again for a double jump to avoid obstacles. Hold down the spacebar to cling on to Muscle Man's side to go through pipes. There's also power-ups to help you last longer. This is one of those how long can you last kind of games. When you lose, you'll get a ranking based on your score. Visually, the game looks great. There's a lot of frame-by-frame animation going on here. I haven't seen regular show in a good while, thanks Max, but I can't remember if this part in the menu is from the show or if it was made specifically for the game. Either way, it looks good. One major problem is that the jump is way too fast. You immediately rocket up into the air and fall like a ton of bricks right afterwards. This makes it very hard to tell where the hitboxes are on the objects in front of you, and even harder to avoid them. I'm assuming they did this as to make sure you can't just jump over the pipes, but you could have just made them longer. Like I wish I could do with this segment, but at least future me won't have to worry about editing as long. So, you're welcome. Also, this is a note from future me. Fuck you, past me. Actually read your scripts and stop stuttering and having to repeat every single fucking sentence. Jesus goddamn Christ. This thing is like 13 minutes long, and I'm pretty sure the original video is over by now. Park Strikers. Oh, hell yeah, I love bowling. Wait a minute. What are these controls? Rotate? Like rotate the ball as I throw it? Oh, this isn't a bowling game at all. It's a puzzle game like Puyo Puyo, but with bowling as an aesthetic. Well, that's a bit misleading, don't you think? I want to see your manager. Never mind, I'll just play as him. You could choose one of 5 members of the park as you face off against several other characters in a bowling tournament. Bring down your pieces and strike them out with a bowling ball that matches the same color as the pins. For these kind of puzzle games, being able to get matches is only part of the challenge. You must be able to think quickly, create good setups for combos, and be prepared for whatever your opponent throws at you. Getting matches sends a timer on a random spot on their board. After a certain number of turns, they'll become bowling pins. If one is coming your way, you can get a match to deflect it back over at them. It will also make it bigger in the process, but don't think you're in the clear just yet, because they can do the same thing back at you. At the end of each tournament, you'll face Death himself in a final round, and I'm assuming you can unlock him too, considering the icon on the bottom left of the select screen. But after just one tournament, it only fills up a fifth of the icon. There are 5 characters you start with, so I'm assuming you have to beat the game with all 5 characters. Yeah, no, your game is good, but I'm not going to be playing that long just to unlock the ability to have Death appear on the left side of the screen and the right. That would be a waste of time.
And these videos aren't?
No, because I actually enjoy this.
Aren't you afraid you're going to lay in your deathbed over 100, shitting yourself, regretting all the time you wasted?
Well, that sounds like a problem for future me. Besides, when I face Death, I could just challenge him to Park Strikers and get reincarnated as a curvy, hot alternative chick.
Somebody call the hospital! Oh, God! Not like this!
Good night, Sam. Good night, Ralph.
I think you dropped something. Excuse me? Don't you know that not littering is one of the easiest ways to help save the planet?
Who are you?
Captain Planet!
Who?
Captain Planet!
And this means what?
No, the powers of earth, water, fire. You remember? Whatever, pal. Part of my role here at Cartoon Network is reminding people like you that protecting the environment is everyone's job. That piece of paper can be recycled and used again to make lots of exciting products like napkins, newspapers, and lots of other products even more exciting than napkins and newspapers. The power is yours. Oh, hey, what the...
How about spitballs?
Yeah, spitballs too. Hey, would you stop that?
Now, it's a review of Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. You're watching Cackling Pumpkins.
In a different world, in a different dimension, there's about to be a serious showdown. Prepare yourself for Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. 18 of your favorite Cartoon Network characters. Rumbling, shooting, punching. Battle your friends with 4-player wireless. Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion. Serious fighting, seriously funny.
I love platform fighters. It's my favorite gaming genre. It's one of those things that I love so much that I can even find enjoyment out of the bad ones. I think we all have a genre like that, not just in video games, but in other media as well. A genre that we're always happy to see. It doesn't matter whether or not the game is good, bad, popular, obscure, a success, a flop, new, or old. As long as I can fight characters with the movement of a traditional side-scroller, then I'm happy. And you know what I also love? Cartoon Network. I grew up with the channel and have been watching their shows for far longer than the term platform fighter was even coined. Feel free to tell me yours, but some of my favorites include Courage the Cowardly Dog, Ben 10 Classic, Ben 10 Omniverse, Generator Rex, Adventure Time, The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy, and Ed, Ed, and Eddy. And wouldn't you know it, there's a platform fighter that brings these two things together. And no, I'm not referring to Multiverses, that game doesn't even exist anymore. Nor am I talking about Brawlhalla, that's one of the few platform fighters I'm not that familiar with. This game came long before either of those two. Of course, I'm talking about Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion.
You thought you were number 1, but turns out you're number 2!
Punch Time Explosion is a platform fighter that was originally exclusive to the Nintendo 3DS that released in 2011. It features a cast of 18 characters from several animated shows, a full adventure mode, and several multiplayer modes. But a few months later, they released an updated version of the game called Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion XL. It added 8 new characters, bringing the roster up to 26, several new stages, quality of life changes, and was available on the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and the Wii. This is the version of the game that most are familiar with, and the version that we will be talking about today. Now here's the thing. I hate the term Smash clone or Smash ripoff. I believe it causes more problems for the genre and implies that platform fighters can't be a genre. I hear so many people say that it's okay, we're just making comparisons, but I disagree. Making a comparison is when you look at 2 or more things and see what they have in common and what makes them different. Calling something a clone or a ripoff only acknowledges the similarities but refuses to note the differences. Not only this, but the term clone isn't a positive thing. When people hear the term clone, they don't think, oh hey, a new game in this genre I like, I should try it. They think, oh, this is just a horrible version of the thing I'm already familiar with. I shouldn't bother with this. And in most cases, they will avoid it. It's one of the biggest hurdles that even after decades, the genre was never able to escape. It's the only gaming genre I see that people seem to think that every game has to have its existence determined by the biggest of the genre, Super Smash Bros. And people say it's because it's the first. Brother, Smash isn't even one of the first 5 in the genre. But it perfected it, you say with your tiny brain. No, my dear sweet stupid child, there is no perfecting a genre, and simply what you're most familiar with. Besides, the idea of there being a pinnacle also does damage to any genre, because it implies that alternatives can exist, and there can only be one good series in a genre, as everything else just sucks. Why do I bring this up? Well, because this is one of the few times I will actually agree with the clone label. For me, a clone isn't just a game in a genre that came after the big one, like so many of you freaking freaks seem to think. A clone or a ripoff is when something tries to replicate what already exists, but refuses to challenge it or experiment with it while also being of very low quality. For example, Rivals of Aether is not a ripoff because it's of such high quality, and it challenges Smash because it was made for the competitive scene from the ground up. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl 2 isn't a clone because of the slime meter that actively changes how the game is played. It's also of great quality. This game is literally Melee 2, and it adds new ideas to the genre, such as a roguelite adventure mode. I would even defend PlayStation All-Stars Battle Royale, because it doesn't even use the percentage system, but rather its own unique super move kill system. Stages also cross over with different series, and every character has a rival that they interact with in the arcade mode. I will defend these games tooth and nail. They are not clones or ripoffs just because they're platform fighters. But Cartoon Network Punch Time Explosion I won't defend. It doesn't do anything different enough to really challenge or experiment with what came before, and this would be fine if the game is of a certain level of quality, but obviously that is not the case. The game plays exactly the way you would expect. You use attacks, primarily standard, charge, or specials, to rank up your opponent's percentage. The higher up it goes, the more sensitive they are to knockback. You use this to knock your opponent out of the arena. Whoever has the most points or is the last one standing wins. You can also grab and throw opponents, but there's only one throw. This game also has finishers called Punch Time Explosions, and this is where the one major difference between this game and Smash comes in, and it's that it's accessed through filling a meter. For some reason, Smash decided that it didn't need a meter for its finishers until Ultimate came out. And then they decided to make it so that the opponent who's actually landing hits gets less energy than the opponent getting hit, so the person who's playing worse will get the final smash first. But here your opponent drops energy that you must run to pick up to charge the meter. Still better than rewarding the loser. This game plays almost exactly like Smash, and like I said, that would be fine, but obviously the game isn't that polished, and it's even missing some features such as taunts and multiple throws. It does feel better than what I remember it playing like years ago, but that's not saying much because the game still has a lot of problems. It's obvious that this game was trying to be like Smash, and that's not a bad thing to want to try and be, but it seems like that it tried so hard that it even shares many of the problems of past Smash titles. It's like Hannah Montana, it's the best of both worlds. And the people involved in both projects were treated horribly by their higher-ups. For example, you can't run and pick up items. You have to run towards an item, stop in front of it, and then pick it up, which leaves you wide open during a match. This was also a problem back in Smash 64 and Melee. This game is also a bit more floaty like Brawl, but I would still say that even though Brawl was on the floatier side, it was nowhere near as bad as this game is. At least in Brawl, you can still perform combos. In this game, it's very difficult to be able to even string 3 different attacks due to how floaty it is. I'm sure there's some borderline psychopath who has figured out how to do some sort of crazy combo in this game, and I would honestly love to see that. The CPUs also have this issue where they're borderline dumb as they don't even utilize everything they can do. CPUs will rarely use their finisher, the Punch Time Explosion, they spam near neutral attacks, and they also react at an inhuman frame-perfect manner, just like the Melee CPUs do. But this game also has its own exclusive problems. Turning is a pain as you can't just turn, you always slightly move in the direction you're turning in, and it's not just a tiny bit either. Jumping can also be a bit odd, as when you jump off the ledge of a stage while running, you seem to get more air. I doubt this is intentional, but I also don't know if this is really a problem, because I could see a platform fighter dev taking inspiration from this to create an exploitable movement system. Imagine if Coyote Time was more common in platform fighters. Hitboxes are also pretty janky, and sometimes it takes a lot of percentage to knock an opponent out of the arena. Don't be surprised if your opponent's percentage regularly gets up to nearly 300 before they finally get knocked out. Lastly, in the gameplay department, one thing that annoys me is that too many characters use the same type of up special. It's this weird, janky, bootleg hero spin. Characters sharing moves is fine, but this is just too much. You really couldn't think of any other recovery move besides just spinning.
Smash would never do something like this.
Well, Smash 64 was made with a very short development cycle, and it's also the first of the series. They wouldn't do something like this in Ultimate. Well, I could defend that, but I hate special counters, so I won't. While there are items, you also have assist. They're what you would expect, but one thing I've noticed is that some assists only harm opponents, while others can hurt everyone, including the one who summoned them. Though it seems to be based on their alliance to good or evil, as the ones that can harm everyone are evil characters like the V.I.D.E.O.G.A.M.E brothers or Sticky Beard. Added to XL is the ability to team up with summons. There are certain assist and character combinations that can activate finisher-like moves. Honestly, that's a cool idea, and the little scenes that play before they start are also endearing. It gives an extra sense of characterization. Visually, the game is standard. It was ported from the 3DS to home consoles and it was released in 2011, so there's only so much you can expect. I could tell they tried to do a lot with these character models though. Many voice actors come back to reprise their roles, but not all of them. Buttercup isn't played by Elizabeth Daily, but rather Tara Strong. Several male characters were replaced by Nolan North instead of their original voice actors. These include Father, Hostelgado, Mojo Jojo, Scotsman, and Captain Knuckles. I don't think this was a problem of this being a video game, as many of their voice actors would return for other games. I'd be willing to bet it was either a scheduling problem, low budgets, or both. Stages look alright too when you consider the 3DS port aspect again, and a lot of them even have destructible environments, which I will always adore. Now let's get into the multiplayer modes. You have your standard regular matches, time or stock, but you can't do both. I recently found out that someone modded this game, and one of the changes they made was to make it so that you could do time stock matches. I do genuinely wonder how much mod support this game gets now. Drone mode uses enemies from the adventure mode, as you must destroy as many as possible. There's also a PTE energy mode. Think of it like coin matches, but with the game's energy system instead. The downside is that you really can't customize these modes. You do have a custom mode, but this is only for regular matches. Drone and energy don't get as much love here. There's also an adventure mode. Several villains from different universes are working together with an unknown force, as worlds are being erased by the darkness from learning with Pibby. Just kidding, that just turns things into outdated memes as an internet bad allegory. Man, that animatic really ruined the mystique of the darkness, huh? Cutscenes are either 2D segments using pre-existing assets as they're tweened around with Space Ghost narrating over it. Space Ghost being an announcer for this game is also a cool idea, considering his history with Cartoon Network. Other scenes have characters standing around talking to each other. Despite bringing back old voice actors, they don't actually read their lines, they just repeat greeting phrases over and over.
I'm Bubbles! Dexter, boy genius.
That's disappointing. What's the point in having dialogue and voice actors if they can't voice said dialogue? Well, it's still better than the Pokemon games. You go through platforming stages as you fight your way through enemies and bosses while completing challenges. The adventure mode is the best part of the game. It feels like they put most of their time into this. Backgrounds are filled with life as there's so much going on, and you see several cameos of other characters reacting to what's happening. There's also a lot of variety in challenges, what you face, and what you can do. And unlike Brawl Subspace Emissary, you actually go to places from their universes and not the lake or the forest, with the halberd being the only location that's from a game. You can also play as more than one character, similar to Brawl Subspace Emissary, but unlike that mode, you can switch between characters with the press of a button. That's also a cool idea, but there's one problem. If you die as a certain character, you'd expect it that you can no longer use them until the level is over, but nope. You could just switch right back over to them. This is something I'm indifferent on. While that means you can play through an entire level as your desired character, it also removes a lot of the consequence that it could have had. There are a lot of enemies, but they don't really act too differently from each other. You've basically just got guys that can hit and guys that can shoot. That's also disappointing. They also have a lot more health than what's necessary, and it doesn't help that many of them don't have that much wind-up to their animations, so you'll be at the mercy of their attacks a lot of the time. Bosses also share some of these problems. I think the worst ones are the robot spiders from Samurai Jack. Much like a lot of the other enemies, they have little to no wind-up to their animations. Their attacks are quick and long-ranged, and they block the instant you get near them. Every world also has a different minigame, like a shooting segment, Angry Birds, QuickTime events, and shooting segments. Minus the QuickTime events, none of them are really necessary. It just takes up more time. I appreciate the variety, but I feel like they should have used that time to refine what was already there. The adventure mode would still be good without them. I've been talking about the problems of this game a lot, but what I'm about to say next is going to seem ridiculous to some. I still like it. Yes, most of this review has been me complaining about the game, but like I said, I love platform fighters so much that I can even get enjoyment from the bad ones too. I noticed these problems because I've played so many platform fighters, but I'm also able to still enjoy the game because this genre brings me so much joy. I will say that this is one of my favorite Cartoon Network games, but I can still recognize that it's far from perfect. I think the idea of a Cartoon Network platform fighter could work, and I would love to see them give the idea another chance. Honestly, I know it would take a lot of work, but since this game is on the Wii, the same platform as Super Smash Bros. Brawl, I would love to see modders create a Project M-like mod for this game. Like I said, that would take an immense amount of work, but I genuinely believe it would be cool. There is Multiverses Infinite, a mod that brought back multiverses from the dead and aims to add new content to the game, though by the time I'm making this video, which is mid-April 2025, it hasn't come out yet, and I don't know if Warner Bros. Is going to try and shut it down. God, I hope not. I don't want another Big Rigs comes out on Steam after I already finished a top 10 worst driving in games list situation. That's what I get for trying to be proactive, I guess. Anyway, support platform fighters, and here's some you should also look out for.